Chapter 400, With the Wind, 5. She looks at me for a moment before speaking. All right. If my benefactor wishes for information, I shall provide it. I walk with her down the palace corridor. After walking for a while, the queen, Yukio, and I arrive at the library. The first thing she does upon arriving at the library is to dismiss all the subjects and guards before entering a corner of the library. Your Majesty, this place is? It is time for you to know as well. The various affairs of Penglai Kingdom. It's when the queen places her palm on a corner of a wall. Flash. The wall seems to glow, and then it turns into a bright white door that opens. Creak. The queen walks inside the door, and Yukio and I follow her inside. And I can't help but be startled by the scene beyond the door. Darkness. The entire world is covered in pitch-black darkness. Yet, strangely, I feel that I can discern what lays ahead in this darkness. It isn't due to using consciousness or awakening a special sense. Despite being in darkness, I can see ahead. It's a peculiar space that can only be explained that way, and I have been in such a space once before. This is the same space as when I faced that being. At the bottom of the serving command arc, it's the exact same feeling as when I met them, presumed to be a true immortal. Step. I follow the queen, and though Yukio is flustered, fumbling as she moves forward, she manages to walk well. How long do we walk through the darkness? Twinkle. Unlike my previous encounter with them, I see a bright white light twinkling ahead. Yukio, possibly delighted to see the light, quicken her pace as she moves toward it. Meanwhile, I recall the warnings given by many beings to be wary of the light and decide to slow down instead. Come this way. What are you doing? Understood. As I hesitate, the queen looks at me curiously and speaks. We arrive at the place with the light, and I can finally see what the source of the light is. Salt. It is, amusingly enough, salt. Salt is placed on a small brazier, and a soft, white light emanates from it, illuminating the surroundings. The surroundings are the library, a library shrouded in darkness. The queen takes out 3 chairs from one side of the library and hands them to Yukio and me before taking out another for herself to sit on. Sit down, as this could become a dull story. Please understand that I cannot offer you tea. That's all right. By the way, is it not uncomfortable? Except for the darkness and the light, it is quite pleasant. I watch the light emanating from the salt with a sense of caution. Isn't it true that important discussions should take place not in the light, but in the darkness? The Queen of Penglai Kingdom gives a meaningful smile at my words. It seems you fear the light. It's not so much fear as it is caution. So you know who you fear. You fear the god of light, don't you? I flinch in surprise and stand up, clutching my head while looking back and forth between Yukio and the Queen of Penglai Kingdom. But neither the Queen nor even Yukio show any reaction, only blinking their eyes. Even more so, I'm also okay. No matter how much I have recently developed a slight tolerance to higher beings, nothing unusual occurring despite higher beings being mentioned is strange. It's when I am bewildered. When one looks up at the summit of a great mountain, their neck cranes because the mountain is so tall. However, if the mountain is partly shrouded in clouds, their gaze stops at the clouds, with no strain on the neck. With her words, I realize that this space is safe. Is it all right to mention them? At least for my daughter and I. As for you, I cannot say. If you're worried, don't mention them recklessly. I understand for now. Then this light. I ask while looking at the white light seeping from the salt. The queen smiles faintly and says, Axel Imperial Venerable. No, do you dreamers call them the god of Salt Mountain? I'm startled by those words but quickly calm down. Come to think of it, it makes sense. Since Penglai Island is obviously the domain of the owner of Salt Mountain, it isn't surprising that they are considered a god or Buddha Venerable of Penglai Island. Hold on, then what existence is the Wheel Imperial Venerable? While I am puzzled, he pats my shoulder to stop me. He is telling me it's best not to mention that name in the darkness. Ah yes, I understand. Having experienced firsthand through Zhongli how serious the consequences can be for mentioning a name carelessly, I remain silent. The queen points to the glowing salt and says, According to the legends, the Axel Imperial Venerable stole the light from the domain of light. When they shaped this world, they used the light they had taken to illuminate the world, and what remained, they bestowed upon us. Then is all the light in Penglai Island safe? Then why did we come into such a dark place? This question suddenly occurs to me, and I ask, but she shakes her head and says, Light can go anywhere. Do you know how much external light comes in whenever Penglai Kingdom is connected to the outside world? The light from outside has already mixed to some extent. The pure light of the Axel Imperial Venerable remains only here. I heard that on the day Penglai Island opened, Hei Lin forbid the light of the ancient force realm itself, but apparently, even that wasn't enough. Well, I understand. Then may I ask what I'm curious about? Ask away. I'll tell you what I know, or recommend a book from the library. She gestures with a gentle voice to the dark library around us. I contemplate what to ask, then question her. Did Yuk Rin ever enter this library? She shakes her head at my words. In this library, only those who know the Axel Imperial Venerable can enter. Others can't even perceive the entrance door. The Imperial Venerable set it up that way. There are a few more restrictions, but they are trivial. In any case, he did not know the Axel Imperial Venerable, so he could not set foot here. I see. The entry condition is unexpectedly formidable. One must know the governing immortal to enter. Among mortals, only someone like me or Seo Huiol would dare to enter. I shake my head and continue with the next question. It's a seemingly trivial but important question. Why are the people of this country human? The Queen of Penglai Kingdom gives me a look as if she doesn't understand what gibberish I'm saying. Ah, it seems you don't quite understand. Where should I start explaining? If you asked Earthlings, why is the dominant species on Earth humans? You would likely receive the same kind of look. However, I, having lived in this world for thousands of years, know it well. In this world, the human race is not a particularly noble existence. They are just one of the many, many intelligent species and are among those who occupy the 6 pillars of the Heaven tribe in the bright cold realm due to their vicious nature, even without any backing from an esteemed one. They are remarkable if they are remarkable, but they are not such a special race. A moderately dominant species that found its place in the world. That is the human race. But Penglai Kingdom is strange. Why is it that, despite numerous races entering Penglai Island to play roles in the world, do they walk around in human form in Penglai Kingdom? Yukyo is a hybrid carp of the demon race, but in Penglai Kingdom, she is a half-human, half-dragon. Jean Mayol is of the fighting ghost race, but upon entering, he's a perfectly normal human. Of course, there are plenty of various demon spirits, but it's a bit unnatural for the ruler of this world to be deliberately human. After listening to my explanation, the queen seems to think for a moment before speaking. I don't really know about that. To us, this is the natural world, but I do know where there might be information about why specifically humans are the dominant species. The queen points to one side of the library. It's a library filled with bamboo scrolls. Read the information over there. You might find what you're looking for. Perhaps. I get up from my seat and take out the bamboo scrolls. It's a kind of mythological text. Among them, a book titled Penglai Chronicles has a shallow account of how the world of Penglai Kingdom was created. In the beginning, there existed a world full of illusionary dreams. The Axel Imperial Venerable felt sorry for this, and, with the help of the Wheel Imperial Venerable, Haiyan Go, Shengu Black Ancient, and 3 heavenly kings, created a new heaven. The Wheel Imperial Venerable rolled the wheel to guide virtuous souls under the new heaven, and the 3 heavenly kings performed all sorts of miracles to cultivate a land where we could live. The primordial giant Haiyan Go, at the request of the Axel Imperial Venerable, made a promise to prevent the snakes from entering this land. Haiyan Go. Seeing a familiar name, I look at the description of this being. The shadow of Haiyan Go when they made the promise became the flesh of our souls, giving birth to us. We have 2 eyes and 2 ears. It's a description of humans. Although the size of the entity known as Haiyan Go being described is a bit, well, very large. The first giant who covered the entire sky with one hand. That is Haiyan Go, Black Ancient. The contents of the bamboo scroll, in there. Looking around, there is another scroll that explains about Haiyan Go. They are the greatest divine beast. They are called the god who governs all oaths and contracts. As the owner of names, they are said to preside over naming of all in heaven and earth. Black ancient paper, black ancient plaque. Only then do I understand why the most revered contract in the ancient force realm is called black ancient paper. The divine spirit governing all oaths and contracts is none other than Haiyan Go. However, I suddenly feel my heart begin to pound. Wait, have I just learned the true name of a great being? Tingle, tingle. It's fine here and now, but if I remember this name when I go outside, I'll be watched, I'll be watched, I'll be watched. Thump, thump, thump. As I calm my heart trembling like an aspen tree, I continue reading the bamboo scrolls and find something reassuring. It's about an existence recorded in another scroll besides this one. Xieji. They are another divine beast. They are the beast entrusted with symbolizing all peace and well-being. In these bamboo scrolls, they refer to immortal beasts as divine beasts. The names used to express immortal beasts are not their true names, so knowing them isn't a problem. Thus, the name, Haiyan Go, is not the true name of the being, but refers to the species of this being. And I realize one more thing here. The meaning behind humans becoming the dominant species of Penglai Kingdom, due to the entity known as Haiyan Go, is just as names like Black Dragon or Lofty Dragon are given when a dragon race becomes an immortal beast. If a human becomes an immortal beast, the name Go, Gu Ancient, is attached to them. Churuk. After resolving my necessary questions, I roll up the bamboo scrolls and put them back. While I was reading the scrolls, it seemed that the 2 others became bored. Yukyo tried to move one of the chairs, and the queen began lecturing her on her behavior. I interrupt their conversation and ask a question. This has been a great help. May I ask the next question? Go ahead. It is regarding the Axel Imperial Venerable. I assume you know well about this topic. I do indeed. You might feel it's blasphemous, but please answer. Is the Imperial Venerable truly dead? Chapter 401, With the Wind 6. Why do you think that? I once heard someone mention that they have died. It's something I had heard from Sio Huiol. However, upon reflecting, there's no need to trust anything Sio Huiol has said. No, even without Sio Huiol, there are pieces of evidence suggesting that being is dead. The biggest evidence is the will I felt from the voice when I first performed the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. That will was definitely a legacy. It felt like a being that seemed to have turned into a corpse, miraculously rising and barely grasping my arm, whispering its will to me. It's a meaning that can only be thought of as a legacy. And I have my own evidence as well. Upon hearing my words, she seems to be choosing her words carefully before speaking. They do not die. Just as light does not die, they are the personification of the concept of repentant enlightenment. One can say that the personified concept has scattered and spread throughout the world, but the word died is not quite the correct term. Is that so? Indeed, at the level of a true immortal, it seems possible to exist in such a manner. Then let's assume that's the case for now. Do you know how to restore someone who was turned into a salt pillar by the Imperial Venerable? She gives a wry smile at my question. It's a story from mythology. There is a myth that has been passed down about those who glimpsed the true form of the Imperial Venerable and turned into salt pillars. Was the way to save them also passed down? She looks at me and asks in response to my question. Let me ask you one thing. How did you come here? I crossed over by using the formula left by the Imperial Venerable. When you used that formula, did your body not turn into salt? When I wasn't used to it, it did. But now that I am accustomed to it, I only generate a little salt around me, and my body doesn't change. Oh, so you don't change anymore. But that's not what's important. Why do you think the palace of Penglai Kingdom is on top of the Salt Mountain? I don't know. At the queen's ensuing words, I am taken aback. The Salt Mountain supporting the palace is not just common rock salt. They are those who once glimpsed the wisdom of the Imperial Venerable. I am surprised, standing up involuntarily. That means, even the Salt Mountain where my main body resides, is also. It's a chilling revelation. This Salt Mountain is also a result similar to Changmun Rayong. As I am shocked, she continues speaking with an entirely calm expression. Do not fear. Those who witnessed the wisdom of the Imperial Venerable may have had their bodies turned into salt mountains, but their souls went to the world of dreams and became their disciples. Pardon, and the opposite is true as well. Those who sought their wisdom in the world of dreams had their bodies turned into salt pillars and crossed over to our world to inherit their wisdom. I am one of those descendants. At her following words, I let out a low sigh. It's not about becoming a salt pillar. It's merely waking up from a dream and moving to another world. In our case, it's about falling into a dream. So if you want to awaken someone who has become a salt pillar, you should also go to the world where they went and bring them back. Does that mean Changmun Rayong is in Penglai Kingdom? That I do not know. I do not know how many worlds the Imperial Venerable has created. It could be our world, or it could be an entirely different world. Her words remind me of something. My memory of traveling through the dream world while I was turning into a salt pillar. According to her, that dream world is the real world. Throb. I look at her and Yukio and ask, is there evidence that this world and the world accessed through the salt pillars are real? By my standards, this world is indeed an unstable world. It feels like a model garden created by the owner of Salt Mountain with the help of other divine beings. Yet, the inhabitants of this world treat our world as the world of dreams. And the world I visited from the head realm definitely had a strong sense of being a dream. The sensation when I woke up from the dream by Hong Fan was so very vivid. That world is indeed a dream. However, according to the queen, that world is not a dream. Everything is confusing and unpleasant. I take a deep breath. May I step out for a moment? Do as you please. But when you return, you will have to enter from the beginning again. I stop inwardly reciting the formula of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. My vision blurs, and I find myself standing in front of the pure white salt crystal palace. I'm back. I look back at the salt crystal palace. A world where my actual existence, Srichen, is in question. It was an extremely unpleasant experience. I exit the space where the palace is located. Kugugugugu. Cherry Blossom Dragon Island, where the palace of salt crystals stands, is speeding across the deep sea. Bekrin. At my call, Bekrin appeared. Yes, cult leader. How many years have passed? 5 years. I am speechless, closing my mouth. Indeed, that world is strange. They say that in fresh leisure, one doesn't notice the axe hand rotting. It's exactly the same. We had exchanged just a few words, Yet such an absurd amount of time has passed. A world where each claims the other to be a dream. Which side is correct? I let out a low sigh and organized my thoughts above Cherry Blossom Dragon Island. In the midst of this, Beck Rin asks me a question. Is Princess Yukyo doing well? In Penglai Kingdom, I wouldn't know if even a Shurchen 2-hour period has passed. I see. I ask Beck Rin a question. Why didn't you follow when you wanted to? He flinches at my words and then gives a bitter smile. Is the cult leader asking even when you know how many friends I have here? Is that so? But it seems like you're afraid of something else. He flinches at my words and speaks. Cult leader has seen the truth. I am afraid of confirming the truth. The truth? Yes. If I enter that world and realize it's the real reality, then what should I consider our original home? But if I say that world is a dream, I won't be able to endure it there. Listening to Beck Rin's worries, I speak. What if both are real? What if the two worlds are just places you can travel between through a peculiar teleportation array? What would he do then? However, Beck Rin shakes his head as if he can't understand my words. Cult leader. This world and that world can never coexist. One of them must be a dream. Why is that? A simple example. If both worlds are reality, hasn't strategist Yun Wei already shattered her hopes in both worlds? Hearing of Yun Wei, my heart feels heavy. It's the same for all of us, cult leader. Every one of us had to endure heart-wrenching pain in that world. It felt like the very purpose of the world was to inflict suffering on us. Of course, reality is no different. But the world within Penglai Island is even more relentless in that regard. As a result, the vast majority of our fellow followers had to endure painful experiences there. Even Princess Yukyo herself. Being born in that world, she came to this world and lost all her siblings, growing up being abused by Yuk Rin. If we were to tell her that all the misfortune she's faced in this world is real, it would be too much for her to bear. Listening to Beck Rin's words, I let out a small sigh. I see. I think I understand why it feels unpleasant and why I feel my identity is being shaken. Whether this world is a dream or that world is a dream isn't the important part. What does it matter if it's a dream or not? If I think about it that way, am I not already dreaming my 19th dream? The pain and the scars experienced in each world are too great. I understand that feeling all too well. My life has been nothing but pain. Over the course of 19 lives, I've truly experienced too much. Crying out to the heavens because I couldn't become a peak master. Crying out to the heavens because I couldn't break through the 7th star of chi refining. Losing my mind and experiencing hallucinations. Seeing someone I trust and consider my brother falling into despair. I even witnessed that friend take their own life. I saw the lover I thought I could give everything to, whom I met for the first time in this world, die, torn in two before my eyes. I even have memories of my loved ones being massacred and living in madness. There was a time I once committed suicide to avoid being turned into a puppet by an old monster. There was a time I experienced an unjust death. And there was a time I had to watch someone who liked me for 1,000 years go insane while my soul was preserved in a puppet. I've seen my master explode to death. I've watched my friends and benefactors be brutally murdered. I've even removed my own testicles by my own will. I've witnessed the connections I gave my heart to be annihilated by heavenly punishment. And I've memories of having to end a loved one who went against that fate by my own hands. I experienced being taken over and eroded by a sinister snake, confirmed that what I wanted most is to die and be buried in the ground, and had the amusing experience of dying while being pitted by my alter ego. So many things have tormented me. After all of that, how can I not say that life is a curse? However, despite that, all of it is my reality. None of it can be considered a dream. Beck Rin, yes. You said one of the two worlds must be a dream? For me, yes. Seeing the enraged Yun Wei and John Myung-hoon in Penglai Kingdom and watching the others, I thought something was strange. Why not just consider both as reality? But it seems others can't endure having two realities. In that case, it's simple. Consider them both dreams. Pardon. Don't try to find the reality in this world. After all, whether this place is real or not cannot be proven by any means. But there is only one thing that remains in this world anyway. A being who once taught me said, the heart never disappears, even if it is regarded as false, even if it is mocked as a mere function of the lungs or of the metal attribute. The heart does not disappear. Beck Rin appears puzzled, as if he doesn't understand the meaning of my words. Well, after all, this kind of contemplation can only be truly understood by someone like me who has endured at least 19 realities. I chuckle as I leave Beck Rin behind and return to the palace with a clear mind. Let me know if you change your mind. I'll take you to Yukyo's world anytime. Beck Rin did not respond. After entering the palace, I returned to my original position through the library passage that the queen had shown me. Have you sorted out your complicated feelings a bit? Something like that. Now, I'll ask the final question. What is it? I asked the queen. You said that becoming a salt pillars means crossing over to another world, right? Correct. Then, I'm curious about the exact criteria for crossing over to another world, regaining awareness there, and coming back. For example, in this world, you can leave by seizing the crown. Does something similar exist in the other worlds as well? She chuckles at my question. You're a bit mistaken. The way that dreamers escape this world isn't like that. Of course, regaining awareness is as Yukio explained. I was the one who told her before. However, the proper way to exit this world was never about seizing royal power or such. I heard something changed long ago, which turned this world into what it is now. I'll tell you how dreamers can properly leave our world. Once you find out, it will be easy to leave. I listened intently to her explanation. After hearing it all, I nod. Thank you for the explanation. Is there anything else you're curious about? The most urgent matters have been addressed. I do have more questions, but, for instance, regarding ancient force. It seems time is running out. A consciousness is poking me. Kim Yun is calling for me from outside. It must mean that time is running out. I stand up from my seat. Thank you for your answers. I will take my leave now. As I stand up, Yukio stands up as well. Cult leader. I have something to say. What is it, Princess Yukio? Please take me with you as well. What? She speaks with a determined look in response to my question. I wish to deliver my final words to Sir Beck-Rin. That would be great. But are you sure? Yukio nods, and I exchange a glance with the queen. The queen nods as if she has discussed it with Yukio. Very well. Then let us go. Grabbing Yukio's shoulder, I leave Penglai Kingdom. Wawoom. When I open my eyes, I see Penglai Island right in front of Cherry Blossom Dragon Island. The two deep sea islands are facing each other, enveloped in barriers like air bubbles. Sir Beck-Rin. As Yukio enters this world, she calls for Beck-Rin, and I see Beck-Rin hastily flying over. Stepping aside to let them talk, I manipulate attraction force. Kugugugugu. The air bubbles of Cherry Blossom Dragon Island and Penglai Island merge. Cherry Blossom Dragon Island moves inside Penglai Island. Quong. Simultaneously, the Salt Mountain and Salt Crystal Palace begin to resonate. I lift the Salt Crystal Palace and slowly bring it over the Salt Mountain. Passat. Releasing the seated detachment, standing Oblivion Avatar, I take hold of the palace with my main body and gently place the palace back in its original position. Salt Crystal Palace and the Salt Mountain become one. Simultaneously, I can feel a force within Penglai Island growing increasingly stronger. Although we aren't immediately falling into an illusion, it feels like the power within Penglai Island is pushing against the laws outside. So it was this. I compare the power inside Penglai Island to the mantra of my reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique and try to mimic that power. I have been trapped within Penglai Island, constantly attempting to grasp and mimic the power of the Salt Mountain. And it is only after returning Penglai Island to its original state that I can finally bring this power into my hands. Wawoom. Around me, the heaven and earth spiritual energy is surging like grains of salt. I direct the surging heaven and earth spiritual energy towards some form of attraction force surrounding Penglai Island. The attraction force dissipates into nothingness. Finally, I have obtained the power to escape my misfortune. Now, I just have to wait. The day to leave the ancient force realm is not far off. Chapter 402, With the Wind, 7. The storage scroll of Lofty Dragon True Person. Under the Shieji worship layer lies the care layer. How long have I been waiting in a lotus position on the altar above? Kugagugum. I feel the entire storage scroll reverberate. I open my eyes wide and smile. They've come. Now it is time to leave. Inside the storage scroll of Lofty Dragon True Person, several forces enter. The black-scaled fish commanding sect is the first to reach the interior of the storage scroll. Right after them, the two four-axis stage cultivators from the Tall Tree race and the Paired Wings race enter. Finally, I see Gyo Yom and his party enter the storage scroll. They slowly advance upward, making their way through the interior of the storage scroll. I look down at them from the physically uppermost care layer and chuckle. This is quite a unique feeling. Just watching them progress in their expedition is entertaining enough that I'm not bored. I can also observe how each race approaches the expedition. The black-scaled fish commanding sect is the same as before. But behind them, I can see Gyo Yom leading the demon race below the heavenly being stage, bustling and rushing about. Gyo Yom is proceeding in that manner, and the Tall Tree and Paired Wings races are. They are advancing rapidly through the storage scroll in an interesting way. First, the four-axis stage cultivator from the Tall Tree race uses would attribute spells to grow trees in the field, and the two cultivators climb up. Then, the cultivator from the Paired Wings race spreads their wings, grabs the Tall Tree race's four-axis stage cultivator, and glides downwards, swiftly traversing the storage scroll. They bypass the flight prohibition within the storage scroll in such a manner. I observe them briefly before turning my gaze back to the black-scaled fish commanding sect. Once again, High GWI is leading the black-scaled fish commanding sect. However, this time it seems they couldn't find a suitable four-axis cultivator, as only people from the black-scaled fish commanding sect are present. The expedition through the storage scroll progresses swiftly, and it doesn't take long for Nok Ju and Beck Wyack, the cultivators from the Tall Tree race and Paired Wings race, to fly here. The two Heavenly Tribe cultivators laugh joyfully, debating whether to pick the Heavenly Lotus fruits from the Melia tree, while I sensed the black-scale fish commanding sect defeating the Calamity Flame and advancing below. And finally, just 3 drops. Please let me have only 3 drops of the Heavenly Lotus fruits juice. Gyo Yom and the Demon Race, along with the 2 Heavenly Tribe cultivators, meet. The history within the storage scroll does not deviate much from my previous life, except for the absence of Seoli. Gyo Yom, as expected, kneels before the Heaven Tribe, and when the 2 Heaven Tribe cultivators ridicule and insult his wife, he becomes enraged and starts a battle with them. Kugagugum. Beck Wyack unfolds his 4-axis canopy, and together with Nok Ju, they pressure Gyo Yom. Unlike before, Gyo Yom seems unable to properly exert his strength against the 2 Heaven Tribe cultivators. The reason is obvious. It's because I've collected and stored all the artifacts Gyo Yom would have brought. Currently, the black-scaled fish commanding sect and Gyo Yom have likely moved up without gaining much advantage from the lower layers. This is because I, having entered the storage scroll before them, have gathered and hidden all the treasures within. Perhaps because of this, the black-scale fish commanding sect and Gyo Yom have reached the care layer much faster than before, and Gyo Yom is being overwhelmed by the Heaven Tribe cultivators due to not obtaining any proper benefits. At this rate, Gyo Yom will probably lose. The black-scale fish commanding sect, having reached the care layer, show no interest in the forces of the 4-axis stage cultivators engaging in battle. Instead, they gradually move toward the Melia tree and begin examining the Tengwa nearby it. The black-scaled fish commanding sect came to acquire something called the Recognizing Sin Tengwa, or whatever, to escape from Hien Eum. I have no particular business with them. My objective is those 4-axis stage cultivators anyway. But if there is something that piques my interest, I'm a bit curious what that Hien GWI bastard is up to. I pass by the disciples of the black-scale fish commanding sect, who are diligently sifting through the Tengwa near the Melia tree at the lakeside, and approach Hien GWI, who is examining a Tengwa in a secluded spot. Since my physical body is currently on the outskirts of the Nether Ghost realm, it's impossible for anyone to perceive me unless they are a ghost cultivator who has cultivated the ghost path method and transformed their nascent soul into a ghost king. I just can't figure out what this guy is up to. I approach Hien GWI to see what he is doing. He is focused on searching for something without paying any attention to his surroundings. Then, at a certain moment, found it. Western Heaven Tengwa. Clench. Hien GWI's face lights up with joy as he pulls out something that looks like pitch-black paper from the Tengwa and clutches it tightly. Flinch. I'm a little surprised by this sight. If it's the Western Heaven Tengwa, isn't it the one Yukyo mentioned? I glance at the Western Heaven Tengwa in Hien GWI's hand. As expected, it's interestingly made of pitch-black paper, making it impossible to discern what is drawn on it. Yet somehow, Hien GWI seems to see something as he sinisterly caresses the center of the Western Heaven Tengwa. What is this bastard up to? What kind of secret does Hien GWI hold? Just as I try to observe him more closely. Hien GWI suddenly raises his head. Hien GWI and I are simultaneously startled. He's looking in my direction, and he is surprised. I am momentarily startled, but quickly understand the direction of his gaze and feel relieved. Hien GWI isn't looking at me, but above me. Is there something over there? I turn my head in the direction of Hien GWI's gaze. In the distance, there is a hanging scroll depicting a map of the Bright Cold Realm. It's a huge scroll hanging on all sides of the care layer. I glance at the map of the Bright Cold Realm, but can't find anything special. Just what is Hien GWI looking at? Determined to uncover Hien GWI's secret today, I glare at him. The subject of my scrutiny for a while, Hien GWI, chuckles and floats the ink-black paper called the Western Heaven Tengwa into the air. Whoom. The 4 symbols nascent soul unique to the black-scaled fish commanding sect rises into the air, creating a spatial rift. He tosses the Western Heaven Tengwa into the spatial rift, and then dissolves the 4 symbols nascent soul. To see you in the Saha world, how strange. He suddenly starts muttering incomprehensible words while looking at the void. This bastard, is he crazy? I heighten my vigilance when Hien GWI starts acting unpredictably. Or is it some kind of secret art, drawing upon the power of some higher existence? The 4 symbols nascent soul secret art of the black-scaled fish commanding sect is specialized in borrowing power, so he might be trying to borrow the power of a true person. However, right after spouting strange words, Hien GWI proceeds to do something utterly incomprehensible. Puckwhack. Hien GWI's nascent soul explodes. Immediately after, Hien Gwi dies. He committed suicide. What in the? Unable to hide my bewilderment, I approach Hien Gwi. He is dead. His face shows no sign of lingering attachment or regret. Just what is this? Hien Gwi is a cultivator at the heavenly being stage, a promising talent with a bright future ahead. Yet, this promising talent chose to abandon his life without a moment of hesitation? I can't comprehend it, so I examine Hien Gwi's corpse multiple times. What are you, Hien Gwi? It was the same in my previous life. When he died at Seo Li's hands, he reacted as if it was a nuisance. If Hien Gwi had been someone's split soul or had a means of resurrection, it might have been understandable. But I saw it clearly. Hien Gwi's soul did not travel anywhere through the plane of soul. It simply headed beyond the outskirts of the netherworld to the afterlife, like the souls of ordinary people. In other words, Hien Gwi died without a doubt. Completely. After examining Hien Gwi's body, I realize I can possess his body since he died so cleanly. Yet somehow, I feel uneasy. I should feel uneasy. Even a fool can tell. This guy is definitely related to a true immortal. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen death so nonchalantly. And the way he was intently staring at the hanging scroll of the bright cold realm just now. Is he somehow connected to the bright cold realm itself? That is the only conclusion I can reach. I look at Hien Gwi with a slightly uneasy expression, then turn around and walk towards Gyo-Yom. Kugugugugu. Gyo-Yom halts and gasps for breath in front of an enormous forest. Ugh, these parasite-like heaven tribe bastards. Tears of blood stream down from his eyes. Just what is so precious about 3 drops of fruit juice that you can't spare them? Are you heaven tribe bastards a bunch of miserly beggars who tremble at the thought of giving away even 3 drops of nectar? A sea of blood surges around him, trying to resist the forest. However, along with the forest, a massive beam of light descends from the sky and strikes Gyo-Yom. Flash. Chi-yi. The sea of blood Gyo-Yom summoned evaporates in the light along with his blood tears. He is being gradually cornered. What's so important about 3 drops of heavenly lotus fruit juice that you can't give even a speck of it? Quam. Blasted away by the combined power of the forest and beam of light, Gyo-Yom vomits dryly with dried blood tears. He doesn't even have the strength to move a single fin. Is this the end? It's then. Gyo-Yom notices something strange about his shadow. What is this? His shadow should have been that of a shark. However, his shadow has suddenly transformed into that of a monster with 19 heads. A small voice whispers in Gyo-Yom's ear. Lend me your body. Who are you? If you lend me your body, I will grant you what you desire. Do you not wish to cure your wife's illness? That. Gyo-Yom looks at the ominous shadow, unable to speak. But he tightly closes his eyes. I will lend you my body. Please, grant me your power. After all, he has nothing left. There is no place to retreat. If that's the case, he has to at least grasp the suspicious demon spirit's hand. As soon as Gyo-Yom grants permission, the shadow clings to his body and begins to gradually permeate it. Baek-Waek, who is radiating light from his wings, widens his eyes in rage. This bastard. What kind of sorcery are you casting? This sinister aura. However, Baek-Waek can't finish his sentence. Kugugugugugu. Gwa. An immense pressure engulfs the interior of Baek-Waek's 4-axis canopy. Simultaneously, Gyo-Yom screams. Bizarre patterns are being etched all over his body. Currently, there is a madman the heaven and earth tribes fear the most after the heart tribe. It's the Mad Lord Circuits. Kaiwa. Kwa. The process of engraving is evidently painful, as Gyo-Yom rolls his eyes back and foams at the mouth with blood. Tension spreads across the faces of Baek-Waek and Nok-Ju. Did you see it, Cultivator Beck? I did. Something black entered that shark race's body. Is there a demon spirit within the storage scroll? Possibly. Be on your guard. For the Earth Tribe, known for their sturdy bodies, to be writhing in such pain. This is no ordinary demon spirit. It's when Baek-Waek and Nok-Ju are concluding their preparations. Kuguguguk. The circuit on Gyo-Yom's body begins to glow, and simultaneously, the 3 great ultimates appear behind his head. What kind of sorcery is this? Cultivator Beck. For now, focus the attraction force within the canopy. I understand. However, at that moment, Kugugugu. The 3 great ultimates have appeared behind Gyo-Yom, and 4 axes emerge around him. Upon seeing this, Baek-Waek and Nok-Ju's eyes widen as if it will pop out. How? That shark race was at most at the early 4-axis stage. Could it be that the realm of that demon spirit is? The axes glow, and the characters engraved on them shine auspiciously. Longevity, wealth, health, and love of virtue. Just what is? It's not even a 5 elements axis. And in the next moment, pot. The axes floating around Gyo-Yom form a 4-axis canopy and begin to devour the domain within Baek-Waek's canopy. Beck Wyke's face turns pale. This madness. Devouring a domain is a divine power only possible for integration stage grand cultivators. So how can a grand perfection 4-axis stage do such a thing? But whether his face pales or not, the true orthodox axis foundation centered around Gyo-Yom expands. The 5 blessings axis canopy instantly devours Beck Wyke's domain and takes control of the surroundings. The scenery, which had been a temple atop a great mountain range, changes. It's a scenery similar to the Dead Earth domain they visited before entering the storage scroll. An endlessly sprawling desert. An unpleasant gray mist that darkens the sky. And at the center of it stands Gyo-Yom. However, they all can tell. That is not the mere shark race they had been facing moments ago. Woo-woo-woo. Sinister ghostly energy envelopes Gyo-Yom. Then, Gyo-Yom's gigantic form is engulfed by the ghostly energy and transforms. Beck Wyke and Nok-Ju's faces turn pale. Through Gyo-Yom's body, a dangerous entity is descending. They possess a body that shimmers with starlight, has 19 heads, and surrounding it, heaven and earth spiritual energy boils wildly in the form of white granules. Kuguguguk. Moreover, in the hands of that fearsome ghost, purple steam is boiling furiously, barking like a hunting dog. Wah. Nok-Ju, upon facing the Ghost King, immediately flees. Kuguguk. He tries to use his own axis to escape from the Ghost King's 4-axis canopy. But it's futile. Quong. Even when Nok-Ju strikes with his axis, the 4-axis canopy does not waver in the slightest. Nok-Ju screams. What is this? It's no different from an integrated Dao domain. This demon spirit bastard. What kind of sorcery have you cast? Then, the Ghost King with 19 heads raises its hand and strikes down. Quong. A single strike. Merely a single strike. Nok-Ju is knocked back by the Ghost King's descending hand, spewing spiritual liquid and faints. Beck Wyke swallows hard and falls to his knees. How could an integration stage senior treat juniors like us so harshly? To him, that being is essentially a grand cultivator at the integration stage. What kind of 4-axis cultivator's 4-axis canopy can possess the same strength as a dimensional barrier? Please, I humbly ask that you convey your wishes. The Ghost King with 19 heads looks satisfied with Beck Wyke's attitude and opens its mouth. You shall receive my command and summon my main body to the bright cold realm. At those words, Beck Wyke gulps nervously. He can understand. The entity before his eyes is a being from another dimension that has sent a split soul at the 4-axis to integration level to the bright cold realm. This otherworldly being is coercing them to betray in order to invade the bright cold realm. If it becomes known that I sided with their side, I'll receive an execution order from my race. Beck Wyke closes his eyes tightly. I must commit suicide. He fears the execution order from his race more than the immediate terror before him. But just then, sorry, but you can't do that. Clinch. Kuru. The purple steam that has been seething in the massive Ghost King's hands surges out like a rabid dog and flows into the heads of Beck Wyke and Nok-Ju. Kiok, kihiok, kiuk. Beck Wyke chokes for breath with tears streaming down his face. A life is precious and should not be wasted carelessly. If you help me, you shall be handsomely rewarded. His body won't move as he wills it. If I move, my soul will be dismantled. He can sense it. This unidentified old monster's purple spell can disassemble and scatter his soul and spirit in an instant. If that happens, resurrection be damned, it will be the end. What can he do if his soul and spirit is disintegrated? Beck Wyke lets out a mournful groan and a deep sigh. I humbly pray for the venerable senior's mercy. Seeing Beck Wyke and Nok-Ju completely subdued, the 19-headed Ghost King possessing Gyo-Yom's body laughs heartily. At last, the advent of our order upon the bright cold realm is near. Wait for me, human race grand alliance. I have returned. Chapter 403, with the wind slash. We gathered in one place with joyful hearts. Everyone listen. We are now heading to the true headquarters of the Wuji religious order. This is the true final destination of our long wanderings in the middle realms. We will enter the bright cold realm. At my words, the hundreds of millions of ghostly creatures of the Wuji religious order let out a ghostly wail, and the demon beast cultivators influenced by the conqueror King Buk Hyangwa's forces and the teachings of the Wuji religious order in the ancient force realm cheer in their own voices. I have already told the followers that the bright cold realm is our origin and that the golden divine heavenly thunder sect in the head realm is no different from a sister sect. Honestly, Yunwei may not want to admit it, but the Wuji religious order, which she calls a pseudo-religious cult, has already grown as massive as 100 golden divine heavenly thunder sects from Jin Byaku's era. Wawoom. As I listened to the cheers of the followers, I grasped the boiling power and attraction force surging from my entire body. Longevity, wealth, health, Love of virtue. I have built the 4 blessings axis. I have reached the same level as Xiao Huiol, who had first demonstrated the 5 blessings axis. Of course, if we go by this cycle, Xiao Huiol is probably still stumbling around blind, unable to even build the 5 blessings axis, so I am ahead of him. And the 5 blessings axis make it overwhelmingly easier to reach the integration stage compared to the 5 elements axis. The 4-axis canopy created by the 5 blessings axis is essentially no different from the dimensional membrane of an early integration stage's integrated Dao domain. Those who build their axes with the 5 blessings naturally have an overwhelming advantage in entering the integration stage. Even Yun Wei said that she could have entered the integration stage whenever she wanted 40,000 years ago, but chose not to out of consideration for Han Wan's reputation. In fact, while I feel a strange disharmony between the vast cold heavenly circle and the 5 blessings axis foundation, I still feel as if I can reach the integration stage at any time. The strange thing is Xiao Huiol. Despite having built all the axes of longevity, wealth, health, and love of virtue, Xiao Huiol never rose to the integration stage. It's strange when I think about the cycle when he was with Gu Ryan. If he didn't want to marry her, he could have just entered the integration stage ahead of her and refused. But he never reached the integration stage to the end. It's strange no matter how much I think about it. Why did Xiao Huiol remain at the 4-axis stage, keeping the 5 blessings axis, without entering the integration stage? Someday, I'll surely find out. In any case, I intend to rise to the integration stage as soon as we reach the bright cold realm. Facing the heavenly tribulation of the integration stage in the narrow deep-sea islands difficult, since the energy of vanquishing evil and upholding righteousness from the heavenly lightning could harm the ghostly creatures. I'm also becoming quite skilled in seated detachment, standing oblivion, so I can perform dozens of strikes without relying on my physical body. At this level, I am at the integration stage even as a heart tribe. In other words, if I can raise my heaven and earth tribe's cultivation to the integration stage this time, I can properly manifest the 3 great ultimates of the integration stage. Bu Qianghua is also improving her skills. In recent times, together with Kim Yun, she has remodeled the entire Twilight Domain into the Twilight Fortress. Now, the Twilight Domain has transformed into something akin to a mobile fortress rather than just a piece of land. If I modify the integration stage puppet that Kim Yun remembers into Buk Qianghua style of integration stage puppet and transform it into a general CEO, I can match heaven, earth, heart, and puppet. And if that happens, quack, I clench my fist. Currently, my power surpasses the grand perfection integration stage to some extent. If the Mad Lord's at her prime comes, I should be able to take an arm. If the cultivation of the heaven and earth tribes each reach the grand perfection integration stage, I can defeat her in her prime. To think that I must raise all heaven, earth, heart, and puppet to the grand perfection integration stage to defeat her in her prime. As I suddenly think of that fact, I let out a small sigh but accept it as it is. A millennium after ascending, the Mad Lord grinded down and embedded 200 integration stage grand cultivators and demon kings, each as subsidiary parts for her. It's not for nothing that Zhang said her aura alone was of the star-shattering stage. Anyway, for us, we have Bu Qianghua. Currently, Bu Qianghua is only waiting for the opportunity to evolve into a 2-pattern law talent. She will also eventually become a 1-pattern law talent like the Mad Lord, so there are no problems. Kugugugugu. Aligning with the wavelengths of the Salt Mountain on Palai Island and the Salt Crystal Palace, I recite the mantra of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique. Pat it. The Salt Mountain and the Salt Crystal Palace shrink, becoming small enough to fit in my hand. This is a miniaturization spell commonly used by cultivators. For those at the heavenly being stage, the best they can do is miniaturize a single sect, but for those at the grand perfection 4-axis stage, miniaturizing a mountain range of such magnitude is no problem. I infuse the energy of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique into the Salt Mountain and Salt Crystal Palace held in my hand. Pat it. The Salt Mountain vibrates more intensely than ever before. As if avoiding the wavelengths of the Salt Mountain, he descends and stands behind me. Is it because I'm thinking it's finally time to return? My shoulders feel as light as if they can fly away. Over the years, I have harmonized the Salt Mountain to my wavelengths. Now, this Salt Mountain is essentially no different from my Dharma treasure. I haven't yet made the Salt Crystal Palace completely mine, but the Salt Mountain alone is mine. Now then, followers of the Twilight Fortress, are you all prepared? I return to my 4-axis main body and ask the entire order. Countless ghostly creatures and demon beast cultivators reply in unison with resounding voices. Yes. I look back at my comrades. Kim Young-hoon, John Myung-hoon, Oh Hyun-suk, Kim Yun, Buk Qianghua, Seo Ran, Shurho, the old man carrying a flower basket, Wei Shurhan, Moi, Beckerin. Everyone, thank you for your hard work thus far. It would be perfect if Yunwei is here, but it will be best to contact her after returning to the bright cold realm. I smile as I look around at the 8 comrades who have been with me since the early days. Each and every one of them are reliable individuals. Now let's go to the bright cold realm. It all started with the intention of saving just 4 disciples of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect. However, before I know it, many connections have followed. Kuguguguk. Emitting a strong wavelength into the air, I lift the Salt Mountain Dharma treasure. The power of the Salt Mountain Dharma treasure, emitting pure white wavelengths, nullifies the massive attraction force of misfortune surrounding Penglai Island. We are departing. Kim Yun and Buk Hyunghwa activate the Twilight Fortress. John Myung-hoon and Oh Hyun-suk tightly bind the Twilight Fortress with attraction force, and Kim Young-hoon stands at the forefront, ready to cut down the vestiges of the interdimensional void or deep-sea monsters that might appear during dimensional travel just like during Ascension. And I, as the cult leader, stand even further ahead of Kim Young-hoon and connect with Gyo Yom, Baek Wyack, Nok-ju, and others in Lofty Dragon True Person Storage Scroll, pulling together with attraction force. We pull from the bright cold realm and hold in the ancient force realm as we escape. Kugugugugugu. Kim Young-hoon slices through the dimensions of the deep sea and cuts down the deep sea monsters. Through the gap, the Twilight Fortress flies rapidly. At this rate, we will smoothly arrive at Lofty Dragon True Person Storage Scroll. I speak with Kim Young-hoon, who is at the forefront. Hyung-nim, about the name Seated Detachment, Standing Oblivion. Yes, I have decided on my own name as well. Oh, what is it? I turn around to look back. Hong Fan pushes aside the flower basket-carrying old man and brings tea to Kim Young-hoon and I at the forefront. Please have some tea. Thank you. Hong Fan, along with my comrades, subordinates, and followers of the order. There is so much I have gained. Wei Shirhan and Eum are still in their honeymoon phase, and Buk Hyunghwa and Kim Yun have become closer, unlike their first meeting. Beckerin also seems to find peace while conversing with Yukyo. John Myung-hoon. Although he couldn't completely save the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect, he has changed significantly from his past self as the Lightning Harbinger. Oh Hyun-suk is also healthy as Azure Tiger Saint is still alive. Yunwei. Frankly, her problem can't be solved until the root of Han One's mental illness is eradicated, but she also cleared her name in her own way and is being treated as an ancestor of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect. Seo Ran, even though he sent off Song Jin, is getting along well with Shir Ho and recently met with Yun Jin, inquiring about the Taiji quaking lightning body. It seems he is trying to accept Shir Ho in some way. He does appear to be a bit greedy for Yukyo as well, but with Shir Ho's personality, it's likely Seo Ran will have to be content with only Shir Ho. Regardless, Yukyo will eventually return to Penglai Kingdom anyway, and others as well, whether it's their cultivation progress, gaining subordinates, or harboring expectations for the new base in the bright cold realm. Everyone is harboring a small happiness. Wai Yun, Yukrin's half-human, half-fish puppet that Beckerin captured recently regained her mind and reunited with her parents. Not only her, but the countless followers of Twilight Fortress. The harmonious demon race and ghostly creatures. Those who believe in me. All of them are the ultimate blessing, bestowed upon me. Yes, they are my hope. I catch Hong Fan, who is about to fall under Twilight Domain after handing over the tea and returning. Ah, thank you, Master. Be careful. You've caught something on your leg. It seems to be an item from the dimensional fragments in the deep sea. It's a bracelet in the shape of a coiled black snake eating its tail. It looks like a Dharma treasure. I'll present it to you, Master. The ancient force realm certainly is a dimension where treasures roll around. Kim Young-hoon laughs heartily. I vowed not to rely on external objects, but honestly, collecting devil swords and demon sabers is so fun that it's become a habit. There's just so much to find in the deep sea dimension of the ancient force realm. I recently picked up a sword. Do you need it? It's a Dharma treasure made of salt crystal. No need. You use it. Taking what you found is a little. I smile and look ahead. Anyway, the name of Hyungmin's realm, Seated Detachment, Standing Oblivion, Huang, is written as Standing Oblivion, Huang, right? That's right. I reach out toward the void with a peaceful expression. The name of my realm is this. Pat it. I grab the all-heaven sword and swiftly perform a sword dance. The sword moves, inscribing words into the air. Seated Detachment, Entering Hope, Zoator Ruang. Not Standing Oblivion Guang, but Entering Hope, Ruang. Not stand in detachment, but a name that reveals my hope, Feng. To enter hope. That is Seated Detachment, Entering Hope, Zoator Ruang. It's a name with the same pronunciation as Kim Young-hoon's realm, but with a different meaning. TL/N, Baram means wind, but it also means hope/something that gives hope. Seated Detachment, standing oblivion and seated detachment, entering hope are both Dhamma, which is why Seo Eunhyun says the pronunciations are the same. The blessings of countless people rest upon these shoulders. Therefore, I must walk towards hope from now on, to not be ashamed in front of them. This is my hope, Faram, and, at the same time, my aspiration. And it is when I breathe hope, Faram, into the name-seated detachment, entering hope. Tingle, tingle. I feel as if I hear a voice from the salt mountain in my hand. No, the voice isn't coming from the salt mountain. It's a sound coming from within me. The knowledge remaining in a corner of my mind, obtained after becoming a salt pillar in the head realm. That knowledge is dissolving. Slowly, I raise my hand and lift the salt mountain towards the sky. Words unintentionally escape my lips. Immortal cultivation is repentant enlightenment. This is part of the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique and the reverse Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique's mantra formula. Like tiny grains of salt gathering to form the sea. Wawum. Each time I recite the mantra aloud, light shines more intensely from the salt mountain. Build mountains through repentant enlightenment. Building a mountain of salt is perhaps the fastest way to reach the heavens. Wawum. Up to this point, it's a mantra I recited regularly. Kugugugugu. Eunhyun. It seems like the attraction force of misfortune is clinging? I don't know for sure, but beside me, Kim Young-hoon speaks with concern. As he said, the attraction force of misfortune is gradually wrapping around us again, surrounding the Twilight Fortress. It seems to get stronger the further we distance ourselves from the ancient force realm. However, I pay no heed and lift Salt Mountain, speaking another mantra that has just dissolved in my mind. Each to one another. This is a mantra, but at the same time, it's a song. Holding hands. This song speaks about connections. With everyone at the sea. The sea mentioned here is in line with the sea from the first mantra. A sea formed by tiny grains of salt. A world of repentant enlightenment and affliction. Drink salt. Salt is repentant enlightenment. All connections, cultivating immortality together in repentant enlightenment. That is what this song is trying to convey. A world of cultivation, not of plundering from one another, but of looking after one another, is sung. And with the wind, I close my eyes. This song. In other words, it is no coincidence that the second mantra of the reversed Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique suddenly appeared. It must be because I hold my hope, Faram, in my heart. A person's heart, a person's hope, Faram, has power in itself. This mantra proves that by itself. Just by holding hope, Faram, in my embrace, without even drawing spiritual energy, my words become mental speech, resonating and spreading. Soar. I slowly open my eyes, recalling the last 3 verses of the mantra. For that is how one reaches the peak of the mountain. Parawayat. A brilliant bright light bursts forth from the salt mountain, coloring the whole world. Heaven and earth's spiritual energy, like tiny grains, envelop the Twilight Fortress and nullifies the attraction force of misfortune. It seems as if the pure white light above my hand is opening the gate to the heavens. I smile as I open my mouth to recite the remaining 2 verses. I have come this far without abandoning anyone. Together with my people, I will walk towards hope. Yunwei said that there is only despair in this world, but those words are wrong. If you wish and wish for hope, hope will surely come and find us. Beyond the pure white light, a pitch-black sky appears. A colossal and tyrannical great mountain, Tilsan, so vast it seems to crush the heavens and earth and the entire universe, enters before my eyes. The great mountain is hardened with the blood of countless people, and innumerable bones and corpses are embedded everywhere. It's a mountain built upon despair and fear, greed and suffering. The peak of that great mountain seems to reach the end of the universe. And then, I make eye contact with something at the summit of the great mountain. Snap! A sound is heard. The Wuji religious order behind me has evaporated. Translator notes. The lines of the mantra formula are the chapter names. In the ROS, it's the chapter names in order, but unfortunately, it doesn't translate the same way. Chapter 404, Bowed Down in Prostration 1. I don't quite understand something. When I turn around, the entire Twilight Fortress has vanished. To be precise, the entire front part of the Twilight Domain Fortress. Kim Young-hoon, John Myung-hoon, Oh Hyun-suk, Kim Yun, Book Hyang-hwa, Seo Ran, Hong Fan, Shur-ho, Yun-jin, and the 13 Guardian Ghost Kings along with Yuk-yo, who has been by Baekrin's side. Excluding those 23, everything has evaporated. And then, right after, Kugugugugugu. Should it be called a cosmic force? A colossal power sweeps between us. It seems to be the aftermath of the Wuji religious order's annihilation just moments ago. Even in the midst of such bewilderment, I somehow managed to pull my comrades in with an attraction force. Everyone, grab each other's hands. We all hold hands to avoid being scattered by the massive storm. On my left is John Myung-hoon, and on my right is Hong Fan. The next moment, Puckwhack, John Myung-hoon explodes. I had no time to react. Like a child crushing an insect, John Myung-hoon couldn't resist at all and was crushed to death along with his domain. Kwajik. Next is Yun-jin. Yun-jin is turned into minced meat. Kwadaduk. Then it's Yukio and Baekrin. The two lovers are crushed and mixed together, their remains intertwined. Wada Kwaduduk. Yududuk. Badudududuk. For a while, my comrades burst and die like bugs. Shortly after, the ones left are Kim Young-hoon, Oh Hyun-suk, Book Hyang-hwa, Hong Fan, and Seo Ran. Kim Yun, only her head, remains. This fact, someone, please tell me, that this is not reality. The storm subsides. With trembling hands, I reach out to the chunks of flesh before me. I caress Yun's face. And then, I once again look up at the great mountain that has appeared ahead. What is this? My voice, it doesn't come out properly. It isn't out of fear of an existence beyond comprehension. I'm just so very, very overwhelmed with emotion that my voice doesn't come out. Right now, that, before my eyes doesn't exude any kind of dignity. I can tell. It's a kind of projection sent by integration stage grand cultivators. That too, a special kind of projection designed specifically to avoid revealing their rank. It's like a shadow. Hence, it's natural that nothing can be felt. But because it's a shadow, I can gaze at the existence at the peak of the great mountain. They're so distant that I can't see them, but I can definitely tell. That existence is the one that just crushed and killed my comrades. Yeah. I can feel it. That existence. It's looking directly down at me. You called for me. Too distant for my consciousness to perceive, too far for my eyes to reach. But I know, right now, that thing is smiling. After taking everything from me. Aawaya. UGHK? Awak. Eog. It hurts. It hurts. My chest feels suffocated. I pound my chest, and something bursts out. It's a flower. It's a black blood tears flower. Normally, requiring the preparation of materials through the Een Soul Ghost incantation and needing to be refined through a special spell formula is the black blood tears flowers. But now, it just pours out as soon as I open my mouth. Flowers of monstrosities pour out of my mouth in torrents. From my eyes, nose, ears. No, it feels like flowers are gushing out from every orifice in my body. Kioiak. Eok. Did you use phenomena extinguishing mantra? Yuwuk. Yuk. Eok. I shall teach you properly. I'll walk. Wayaf. Aok. My eyes roll back. I savagely tear open a hole in my stomach and pull out the colorless glass sword. The idea of taking it out from my mouth doesn't even occur to me. Completely deranged, I charge towards the black mountain in front of me. What did it duck? My vocal cords shatter, as if silencing me. At the same time, the colorless glass sword I hold shatters into pieces and scatters into the void, as if mocking me. Woo-woom. The barrier of yin-yang and 5 elements rises, trapping me. At the same time, space begins to warp. Yi-yun-yon. Crunch splatter. I see Book Hyang-hwa, who is still alive, get caught in the spatial storm and have her entire body crushed. Hiya. Kim Young-hoon tries to resist, but is torn limb from limb and dies as his head is plucked off. This bitch, you dog shit, you dog. Oh Hyun-suk tries to do something, but is compressed into a meatball and dies. Seo Ran, peculiarly, has his nascent soul extracted and absorbed into the black, great mountain. And Hong Fan is caught in the spatial tempest and has his entire body torn apart. Even as his body is being ripped to shreds, he speaks with his trembling pupils, as if saying everything is fine. It has been an honor to serve you up close. As long as Master remembers me, I will always be watching over. Kwajik. Those are Hong Fan's last words. He looked like an old man, but in reality, he was even younger than Book Hyang-hwa, the little centipede that had stuck close to my foot on Ascension Path, who sacrificed himself and died for me when I was modified by the Mad Lord, who, even though I didn't take care of him when we went to Seo Huiol, showed his talent and grew up to be a splendid genius centipede, who eventually reached the transformation stage and took on human form, becoming Hong Fan, who had always silently served by my side until now, my subordinate. No, my friend, has died. I wail with my shattered vocal cords. My voice, resounding across heaven and earth, spreads throughout the world. Phenomena, mate, extinguishing, fa, mantra, jan. I see it. In front of Great Mountain. Something begins to gather. I think of it as just the spiritual energy of yin-yang and 5 elements at first, because it exactly matches the flow of the reversed Great Mountain splitting emperor technique that I have memorized. However, I gradually realize something. Something is gradually gathering more and more. No, beyond that. The attraction force of the world is growing stronger. Jangik's words flash through my mind. When the attraction force of the heavenly domain reaches its peak, the end will come. Kugagagugu. The attraction force of the entire world outside the barrier of yin-yang and five elements is gradually becoming stronger. Centered around the materialized sphere formed by the energy of yin-yang and five elements gathered in front of Great Mountain, the entire attraction force of the heavenly domain begins to converge. The universe starts to contract. Are those stars? Decaying corpse realms? Oh, they are galaxies. Amidst this surreal scene, I watch in a daze, forgetting even to wail, as countless stars, decaying corpse realms, and galaxies converge into a single point. The heavenly domain begins to narrow. Gradually, the world becomes hotter, filling with light and heat. I gape as I see countless decaying corpse realms being pulled toward Great Mountain. Thighs, Yang Sujin's ring finger, someone's backhand, flesh, bones, livers, eyeballs, other organs, skin, tails, and so on. Countless decaying corpse realms are being sucked in, and galaxies are colliding with galaxies. And then, my eyes widen, wondering if what I am seeing is real. Nether Ghost, Minguri. Purple Gold, Ancient Force, Gli. True Devil, Junmo. Bright Cold, Gonghan. The five middle realms are being sucked into that sphere. As someone who has built the symbolic axis of each realm, I can distinguish the middle realms. And something dark red in the distance seems to be trying to escape, but is inevitably pulled in as well. But that isn't all. True persons. The true persons who have suffered fatal wounds from me are, of course, as well as those disguised as planets and quietly sleeping, all awaken and try to flee in the opposite direction of the attraction force. Yet not a single true person succeeds in escaping and are instead all sucked in. The situation is so surreal it feels like a dream. Soon, the world itself, now filled with light and heat, compresses in front of Great Mountain. In other words, all the galaxies, middle realms, decaying corpse realms, and true persons have been sucked in and contracted to the same size as the sphere. No, the contraction doesn't end there. The heavenly domain continues to contract even in that state until it finally becomes a single point of white light. The being atop Great Mountain seems to contemplate something upon seeing this point before tossing it somewhere. I see the point formed by the contraction of the entire heavenly domain being pulled somewhere. As there is no longer light or anything else, I can't verify where it goes. All I can do is despair. This is the true form of the thing you used. The reversed Great Mountain splitting emperor technique. No, the phenomena extinguishing mantra, Mirfak Jinyan. The true purpose of this mantra is not simply to gather the energies of yin-yang and five elements and display an inverted cone. It's an immortal art meant to gather everything, including yin-yang and five elements and all of heaven and earth, to bring about the end, Zhonghua. That is the phenomena extinguishing mantra. Now die? Puckwhack. And then, just like my comrades, I instantly explode into a mass of minced meat. Both the nascent soul and the heavenly circle and earthly bearings. Everything is shattered without a chance to resist. As I die, I realize, the being atop Great Mountain kept me alive until the very end solely to mock me in the most miserable way possible. Until the very end of all ends, that thing mocked me. Feeling the mockery of the existence atop Great Mountain, I lose consciousness. That is my 20th return. Inside the yin-yang and five elements barrier, where Seo Unhyun has been reduced to chunks of meat, lies the miniaturized Salt Mountain and Salt Crystal Palace. As the being atop Great Mountain gestures, they rise toward the towering peak of Great Mountain. At the summit, built on layers of suffering, fear, and oppression, the being seated there extends their hand towards the miniaturized Salt Mountain, and the mountain floats into their grasp. For a while, the being caresses the Salt Mountain with care, as if it's something precious. However, as if recalling something, they gaze at the Salt Mountain with eyes filled with contempt. While doing so, the being looks somewhere else. It's the spot where the point of the contracted heavenly domain was tossed. Flash. From that spot, a burst of light erupts, and 8 colossal shadows begin to walk forth. The being atop Great Mountain watches them with a sneer before dissolving into the void, disappearing. In its place, only the barrier of yin-yang and five elements, containing Seo Unhyun's minced meat and the shards of the colorless glass sword, remain. The 8 shadows simultaneously let out a thunderous roar. Rheon. In response to their reactions, light explodes fiercely, and the heavenly domain that was contracted into a single point begins to expand once more. The astral realm, Xingjit, that is, the universe, Yuzhou, begins to unfold once more. After the yin-yang and five elements barrier enters the universe, when the universe starts to fully form again, it unravels. Throughout the universe, newly born quasi-immortals at the entering nirvana stage squirm and swim in all directions, instinctively beginning to create stars. The shards of the colorless glass sword scatter throughout the entire universe, and a fragment of Seo Eunhyun falls on one of the stars created by the quasi-immortals. Then, the old man carrying a flower basket covers Seo Eunhyun's fragment with soil and pats it down. Tap, tap. It was enjoyable. The flower basket carrying old man, known by some as the owner of Western Heaven Flower Field, or what others refer to as the Eastern Heaven Flower Field. The Sao Tree Heavenly Venerable, after completing this task, smiles faintly as if satisfied and turns around to leave. Not long after, he vanishes from that heavenly domain, and shortly after the Sao Tree Heavenly Venerable disappears. SSSSSSS. From the place where Seo Eunhyun's fragment is buried, a flower begins to bloom. The flower seems to shine brightly, emitting a pure white light. And within that light, a familiar presence begins to be resurrected. TSTSTSTSTSTSTSTSSS. It's Seo Eunhyun. Seo Eunhyun, revived without a single wound, looks around in a daze for a moment. And then, ahhhhhhhhh. Kugugugugu. Wawaza. Around him, a field of cursed flowers blooms. Chapter 405, Bowed Down in Prostration 2. The heavenly domain is formed, and naturally born quasi-immortals emerge, creating stars. Not long after, beings below quasi-immortals are born. These are the administrators of the worlds, the sacred masters. The naturally born sacred vessel stage, sacred masters manage the laws of the stars created by the quasi-immortals and instinctively begin to birth life into the universe. Under their influence, stars find their orbits, and in an instant, galaxies and star systems are born within the heavenly domain, transforming into environments conducive to the growth of living beings. And then, on a star that has been moved near a fixed star by one of the sacred masters. Editor. Fixed star refers to one like our sun. There is a presence. Wriggle, wriggle, wriggle. Mumble, mumble, mumble. He is a man dressed in white, with black flowers blooming around him. It's Seo Eunhyun. Seo Eunhyun mutters something continuously with a vacant gaze. His eyes are empty, and the black blood tears flowers around him incessantly wriggle repulsively, emitting ghostly wails. However, Seo Eunhyun, standing at the center of this monstrous flower field, simply mutters incomprehensibly with an indifferent expression. As time passes, the field of cursed flowers expands. The flower field continues to grow. 1 li, 10 li, 100 li, 1,000 li. However, that seems to be the limit. The field of cursed flowers stops expanding after reaching a diameter of 1,000 li centered around Seo Eunhyun. Instead, at a certain moment, rather than flowers in a flower field, animals begin to appear. Wriggle, wriggle. Things like veins and intestines, having sprouted from Seo Eunhyun's body, struggle to detach from him before eventually dying. This phenomenon continues for decades, eventually evolving. Then, at some point, heck, a dark black blood tears flower seems to bloom from Seo Eunhyun's body, and from within the black blood tears flower, a being with tentacles and a face identical to Seo Eunhyun's emerges. After staring at Seo Eunhyun for a moment, the being attempts to flee as far as possible from him with a face filled with terror. However, the further it gets from Seo Eunhyun, the more it seems to lose strength, eventually shriveling up and dying. Dozens of black blood tears flowers bloom from Seo Eunhyun's body each day, and from within them, monsters identical to Seo Eunhyun appear and attempt to flee from him, only to repeatedly wither and die. The true identity of these monsters are none other than Seo Eunhyun's heart demons. Even though the heart demons wither and die, they all desperately try to escape from Seo Eunhyun's body for a reason. Mumble, 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 mumble. Seo Eunhyun's lips continue to mutter something. But, though he is muttering, the exact meaning of those words are impossible to discern. They are merely sounds emitted without any purpose. And the eyes of Seo Eunhyun, who is uttering these meaningless words, are so darkly tainted to a point no one could possibly imagine. Shaiya. Though Seo Eunhyun himself seems unaware, as time passes, his hair gradually turns white, just like it would in his old age. Mumble, mumble, mumble. However, whether he knows it or not, Seo Eunhyun continues to mutter repeatedly, constantly vomiting curses from his body. A new heavenly domain was born, and 1,000 years passed. During this 1,000 years, countless life forms began to settle on various stars under the guidance of the sacred masters. Naturally born star-shattering stage beings also began to emerge one by one, breathing new power into the heavenly domain. And during this millennium, there is a planet that has half melted. Near the core of that planet, there, something that has been drooping and muttering with a ruined gaze suddenly clenches its fist. The being that clenched its fist strikes its own head with that fist. Quong. The entire planet trembles. It's a truly terrifying blow, but the being remains unscathed even after taking that blow. However, there appears to be some effect. The being stopped its muttering, splits open its own stomach, and reaches inside to pull something out. It's a scroll. When the scroll is unfurled, certain objects and puppets sealed within are revealed. One of the puppets inside the scroll is crying and wailing. The being that half-melted the planet pulls out the puppet with a vacant expression. Congratulations on thy birthday, most revered cult leader. The puppet wears a face full of reverence and bows to him in the shape of a 90-degree angle. And finally, he understands. Roughly 1,000 years after the birth of the new heavenly domain following the end. That day is exactly his 5,000th birthday. Of course, this is his 5,000th birthday not in terms of physical age, but in terms of the age of his soul. The being celebrating his 5,000th birthday, Seo Eun-hyun, upon hearing the puppet's congratulatory words, finally regains his sanity. However, just regaining his sanity didn't bring about any drastic changes. He simply continues staring into the void. What good will it do if something changes? In any case, there is nothing left in this world. All those he loved are dead. There is no place to return to. In that case, just what is a person supposed to do? For roughly 1,000 years, he has raged, suffered, and cursed. But after half-melting the planet, rather than pain, a sense of emptiness engulfs him. In the past, when he lost his beloved to Yuan Li and swore revenge, it was because Yuan Li was still at a level within his reach to some extent. But this time, what can he possibly do about the being that annihilated his comrades, the ones he loved? Seo Eun-hyun knows. Even if hundreds of millions of years pass, he can never defeat that devil god, Mo-sun. That being is so distant and unfathomable that he can't even fathom how to reach it. But how is he possibly supposed to suppress his desire for revenge? He spends another 23 years sitting in stupid with a hollow laugh. And then, in the 24th year, suddenly, his eyes shrivel up as he touches his abdomen. Ie. It has been so long since he has spoken that it's as if he has forgotten how. However, he soon recalls the words. It's gone. Panic spreads across his face. Colorless glass sword. The colorless glass sword is gone. And he remembers. The moment he tried to swing the sword toward the being atop Great Mountain, the sword shattered. And only then does he finally cry out again. Wapa? Ah, hhhhh. Ah. While his whole body trembles, he still manages to find a very faintly embedded shard of the colorless glass sword inside his golden core. Finding the shard of the colorless glass sword, he clenches his teeth as his hands shake uncontrollably. Find, I must find. Finally, after spending what amounts to nearly 1,000 years, a sense of purpose begins to take root, and with it, rationality begins to return to him. Without a word, he extends his consciousness, scouring the planet he is on. However, he fails to find any more shards of the colorless glass sword. After scouring the planet for a while, Seo Eun-hyun moves to a neighboring planet to search for the shards of the colorless glass sword. There are none on the neighboring planet either. However, he acts somewhat differently on the neighboring planet. Kuguk. He uses earth attribute spells to reshape the ground, attempting to recreate the faces of his comrades from memory. Whether it's a sculpture or a mural, it doesn't matter. But after a while, Seo Eun-hyun's hands stop. His eyes waver precariously. The fact that the colorless glass sword is gone means that the canvas of myriad forms and connections, which relies on it, is also gone. And the absence of the canvas of myriad forms and connections means that there is a leak in his small pool of memories. His hands tremble as he struggles to remember the faces of his comrades accurately. And after roughly 36 years of agonizing effort, Seo Eun-hyun manages to recall the distinct features of his comrades and sketches their faces. But he is far from satisfied. Their faces are not clear. He sighs gloomily. In any case, if he wants to recover his proper memories, he needs the canvas of myriad forms and connections. And for that, he needs the colorless glass sword. Using the planet where he has drawn his comrades' faces as a coordinate, he continues his search for the shards of the colorless glass sword. Although the colorless glass sword was shattered into tiny pieces and scattered throughout the astral realm, Seo Eun-hyun is undeterred. This is because even though it's called a glass sword, after being tempered by Seo Eun-hyun's Dan fire for over 4,000 years, it has transformed into a mineral that is questionable to call glass. What that means is that the shards of Seo Eun-hyun's colorless glass sword are older than this newly born heavenly domain itself. The method he uses to track the shards of the colorless glass sword is simple. He would find a planet and activate the formula of the canvas of myriad forms and connections throughout the entire planet through the dragon veins. If there is a place where the power of the dragon veins gathers, that would be where the shard is located. The planet where the canvas of myriad forms and connections is activated will be one where the canvas of myriad forms and connections has never been used before. And if the dragon veins activated through the aura of the canvas of myriad forms and connections are further concentrated on a specific location, then it is likely the shard of the colorless glass sword. which is more familiar with the canvas of myriad forms and connection compared to the planet itself, would be there. Using this method, Seo Eunhyun is able to recover a shard of the colorless glass sword about the size of a thumb over the course of 4,000 years. And there is one very first thing Seo Eunhyun does after finding that much of the colorless glass sword. Wawoom. He returns to the planet where he has first drawn the faces of his comrades and activates the canvas of myriad forms and connections using the thumb-sized restored piece of the colorless glass sword. Although the range that can be restored isn't a lot, it still contains the faces Seo Eunhyun desires. Seo Eunhyun restores those faces and sculpts them into statues. This time, they are very small statues, small enough to fit in his hand. After burying those statues on the planet, he creates tombstones on the ground. He has only made the graves for those within the restored canvas of myriad forms and connections. That is all Seo Eunhyun can do for now. However, he has already found a new purpose. To fully restore the canvas of myriad forms and connections, remember all their faces, and create tombstones for everyone he remembers from the previous heavenly domain. That is his new goal in this new heavenly domain, where no one remains. He bows deeply towards the graves he has already made and lights incense. In his own way, he is giving them a funeral. Thus, from that day, Seo Eunhyun's journey began. A further 6,000 years pass. Seo Eunhyun has now reached exactly 15,000 years of age. Clink. Seo Eunhyun finally restored a handle of the colorless glass sword. The progress is painfully slow. However, he smiles. The number of tombstones he has created on planets has increased. He places the colorless glass sword into his storage scroll. He still doesn't fully understand how he was resurrected, but one thing is clear. The entity that revived him also restored his storage scroll and his other belongings. Thanks to that, he is able to use the conveniences of a cultivation civilization, such as the storage scroll. Looking at the handle of the colorless glass sword inside the storage scroll, he thinks to himself, refining them in his Dan fire can only be done after all the shards of the colorless glass sword are restored, tempered together. If not, the shards that are in contact with the Dan fire for longer will become stronger, while others will be weaker, resulting in an unevenly restored colorless glass sword. Woom. As he grasps the handle of the colorless glass sword and operates the canvas of myriad forms and connections, he feels a slight pull. It's a very faint pull, and the duration is short, but Seo Eunhyun doesn't mind. It's a good sign. The more the colorless glass sword is restored, the greater of an attraction force it emits through the canvas of myriad forms and connections towards the other shards of the colorless glass sword. In other words, the more he restores the colorless glass sword, the faster the restoration process will become. And so, another 15,000 years pass. Seo Eunhyun finally restored one of the 3,000 colorless glass swords. Chapter 406, Bowed Down in Prostration 3. A single sword. However, Seo Eunhyun is not disappointed. TSTSTSTSTSTST. Although it's just a single sword, the fact that it has taken shape is what matters. A faint mist begins to rise over the colorless glass sword. Seo Eunhyun restores the canvas of myriad forms and connections related to his overall memories. The canvas of myriad forms and connections that forms the main thread of Seo Eunhyun's life. Wong. He feels the attraction force that the humming canvas of myriad forms and connections points towards. The attraction force has become much clearer than before. Now, it will be much easier to find more shards of the colorless glass sword. After sensing the attraction force for a moment, Seo Eunhyun descends onto a planet where he was making a tombstone. He inhales the spiritual energy and half closes his eyes. Behind his head, the heavenly circle rises, and the 4 axes emerge in his 4 directions. Kururum. As if realizing what he is about to do, dark clouds begin gathering in the sky. Indeed, 30,000 years. Now, even Seo Eunhyun's lifespan is nearing its end. He gained 10,000 years each from the axis of wealth and the axis of love of virtue, and another 10,000 when he reached the 4-axis stage. The longevity axis and the health axis had both been sacrificed when he reached the 4-axis stage, so they are as good as non-existent. Therefore, if he wants to continue living and keep searching for the colorless glass sword, he now has to rise to the integration stage. He soars into the sky, ensuring the tombstone he created remains intact. Unlike the typical heavenly tribulation that could be faced comfortably while sitting, the breakthrough tribulation for the integration stage has to be faced while floating in the sky. In the case of John Myung-hoon, the power of his heavenly golden thunder body allowed him to transform and withstand the tribulation, but Seo Eunhyun, possessing more ordinary talent, has no such ability. First, let's gather all the necessary materials. Seo Eunhyun directs his will towards the dragon vein below. Attraction force emanates from his hand. Kugugugugu. The dragon vein, which had been boiling within the star, is pulled out by Seo Eunhyun's will and begins to be refined within his grasp. Seo Eunhyun uses the internal energy method known as Dragon Vein Chi method, which he mastered during his time in the martial world. In an instant, Seo Eunhyun's body transforms, becoming indistinguishable from a dragon blood pool where dragon veins converge, and the powerful energy of the dragon vein surges like a torrent following the circulation of the Dragon Vein Chi method. Connected to the dragon vein through the Dragon Vein Chi method, Seo Eunhyun refines yet another nascent soul through the Earth Tribe method. The energy of the Dragon Vein Chi method is of the Earth attribute, and the newly refined nascent soul glows with a golden hue, imbued with Earth energy. Wong, a nascent soul of the Earth attribute, appears before Seo Eunhyun's eyes. Using the power drawn from the dragon vein, he begins to erase the personality of the nascent soul, leaving only its attribute. And then, Wuduk Wadudaduk, he starts compressing the nascent soul. After a while, the nascent soul completely transforms into an axis of 5 elements representing the earth element. Seo Eunhyun places the axis of 5 elements refined through the Dragon Vein Chi method onto his palm, and then alters its attributes in correspondence with the 8 trigrams. The fire of the 5 elements corresponds to the fire of the 8 trigrams. The water of the 5 elements corresponds to the water of the 8 trigrams. The wood of the 5 elements corresponds to the wind, Feng, and thunder, of the 8 trigrams. The metal of the 5 elements corresponds to the sky, and lake, of the 8 trigrams. The earth of the 5 elements corresponds to the ground, heat, and mountain, of the 8 trigrams. Gradually, the nature of the axis of 5 elements changes, transforming the earth, attribute axis into Jin, that is, the axis of mountain, San. Considering that my heart essence and most of my main methods are related to mountain, it's better to prepare a mountain axis. Of course, in that case, it would have been better to build the mountain axis directly using the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique rather than the Dragon Vein Chi method. However, Seo Eunhyun painfully understands more than anyone else that the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique is connected to true immortals. So he created the axis using the Dragon Vein Chi method derived from Kim Young-hoon, instead of a method originating from a true immortal. And so, Seo Eunhyun's breakthrough to the integration stage begins. Ying. Seo Eunhyun's nascent soul exits through his Baihui point and sits cross-legged in the air. At the same time, the halo of the vast cold heavenly circle forms behind the nascent soul's head. The 5 blessings axes of longevity, wealth, health, and love of virtue form the earthly bearings around the nascent soul's dantian. Typically, the process of rising to the integration stage would involve first shortening the distance between the heavenly circle and the earthly bearings through the process of heaven and earth unity, then merging them entirely, and finally evolving them into a small world. But Seo Eunhyun half closes his eyes. 6 shadows emerge from beneath him. After infusing the love of virtue axis, his 6 extremes in thunder body completely vanished. No, to be exact, Seo Eunhyun's 6 extremes in thunder body became the 6 extremes, Liji, itself. 6 additional axes emerge around him. From his vantage point above the planet in the astral realm, Seo Eunhyun is able to resolve one of the doubts that has previously arisen in his mind. It's about the 5 elements heterodox axis foundation, the 5 elements orthodox axis foundation, the regular 5 blessings axis foundation, and the 5 axis 6 extremes axis foundation formed by receiving the 5 blessings and returning lifespan to sense the 6 extremes. The 4 axis stage, or rather, the earth axis stage, has a lot of methods. Then among all these methods, which one is the correct approach? He has pondered about this. The 5 elements axis places the attribute learned by one's nascent soul as the center and strengthens the central axis with the remaining 4 axes of 5 elements. The 5 blessings axis do not strengthen attributes, but instead strengthens the 4 axis canopy itself. Which one is truly the proper earth axis stage method? Only now, on the day he performs the breakthrough ritual to the integration stage, does he finally find the answer. They were all one from the beginning. The originally united method of axis foundation practice. It has been split by someone. Originally, the 5 blessings axis is composed of health, wealth, longevity, love of virtue, and the individual's heavenly circle-turned axis corresponding to acceptance at fate's end that forms the 4-axis canopy and evolves it to reach the integration stage. With the 5 blessings axis method, it becomes significantly easier to unite the heavenly circle of acceptance at fate's end with the earthly bearings of health, wealth, longevity, and love of virtue, significantly reducing the difficulty of rising to the integration stage. But what will happen if the 6 extremes axes are added? heavenly circle of acceptance at fate's end, along with longevity, wealth, health, love of virtue, and the 6 extremes. First of all, the numbers don't add up. Though the heavenly circle is perfect on its own and doesn't require a numerical counterpart, where do the 6 extremes fit within the earthly bearings? Of course, one can still attach them appropriately and skillfully, and as long as one has the sufficient senses to maintain a balance, there won't be any issues with rising to the integration stage. In fact, upon reaching the integration stage, the 5 blessings and 6 extremes become more perfectly integrated, providing advantages in terms of attraction force and other aspects. However, the 5 blessings 6 extremes axes are inherently rather ambiguous axes. I was mistaken from the beginning. He finally realizes how to unify the previously fragmented 4-axis method. The mistake was in thinking the 5 elements axes and the 5 blessings axes are separate. Wawung. Co Unhyun's vast cold heavenly circle, located in the upper dantian of his nascent soul, separates from it. The 4-5 blessings axes in the lower dantian of the nascent soul also detach. Combining the vast cold heavenly circle with the remaining 4 blessings creates 5 axes. Adding the 6 extremes axes results in 6 axes. A total of 11, a rather ambiguous number. However, Co Unhyun lifts the mountain axis that he prepared beforehand. The mountain axis slips in among the 11 axes. 12 axes are now formed. At last, the earth axis stage is completed, requiring the 5 elements axis, the 5 blessings axis, and the 6 extremes axis. That is the proper earth axis stage. From the beginning, the crucial point in forming the heavenly circle and earthly bearings is the sky and ground. The 4 directions aren't necessarily required. Co Unhyun completes the earthly bearings with the earthly branches, Dejr. Wawung. Centered around Co Unhyun's nascent soul, the 12 axes connect through attraction force, and each take their respective positions. Then, the yin-yang dual energies within Co Unhyun's nascent soul begin to rotate, turning the wheel of day and night. With each cycle of day and night, the nascent soul's shadow and light sweeps across the 12 axes in sequence. Gradually, the rotation of day and night accelerates, and the speed at which light and shadow passes over the 12 axes also increases. And at a certain moment, the 12 axes shine brightly, drawing a circle. Co Unhyun converges his attraction force towards the center of the circle, preparing to break through. Inside the circle created by the 12 axes, the scenery of Co Unhyun's 4-axis canopy begins to be reflected. And according to the landscape within the 4-axis canopy, the circle gradually begins to take on a 3-dimensional form. It's a method of advancement quite different from that of ordinary cultivators at the 4-axis stage, but he proceeds without hesitation. Woo-woo. The 4-axis canopy that had been becoming 3-dimensional suddenly forms a complete sphere, and Co Unhyun's nascent soul expands to match the size of the sphere, placing it within his dantian. The shape is strikingly similar to the planet beneath Co Unhyun. These are the earthly bearings, Feng. However, Co Unhyun integrated his heavenly circle axis with the earthly bearings. So, how is he supposed to achieve heavenly circle? The answer is simple. Wu-wung. Centered around the earthly bearings within his nascent soul, Co Unhyun's nascent soul gradually begins to melt. His nascent soul becomes the atmosphere surrounding the earthly bearings world, simultaneously becoming the cycle of yin and yang of day and night, the star constellations, and even the cycle of the 4 seasons. Co Unhyun gradually makes his nascent soul resemble the planet beneath his feet. His attraction force forms the earthly bearings attraction force, giving rise to the concepts of north and south. With the workings of day and night, east and west are born, finally manifesting the concept of the 4 directions within the sphere. The heavenly circle of the sky and the earthly bearings of the ground interact, forming a small world of heaven and earth unity. Simultaneously, kugugugugu, dark clouds begin to gather in the sky. Co Unhyun starts his rise to the integration stage. Kwarurum. From the sky, 3 types of heavenly lightning descend upon him at once. The ordinary blue-colored heavenly lightning that falls from the sky, the golden heavenly lightning that typically strikes during breakthrough, and the mysterious black-colored shinsero heavenly lightning, symbolizing the heavens. TL/N, mysterious black as in the same black in Black Ancient. Each of these 3 types of heavenly lightning strike Co Unhyun with exactly 200 bolts each. Quadadoodadoo. At the same time, the dragon vein of the earth beneath Co Unhyun's feet begins to writhe violently. Simultaneously, with a thick mist seemingly gathering near the ground, lightning surges from the ground to the sky. Again, the blue lightning that has been striking Co Unhyun and the enders. The golden lightning, typical of a standard breakthrough heavenly tribulation. And the yellow-colored Angsur lightning, symbolizing the earth, shoots up from the ground to the sky with 200 bolts each, striking down on Xiao Unhyun. But that is not the end. Dark clouds begin to form from the east of the planet, and in addition to the blue and golden heavenly tribulation, the azure-colored, Qingso, heavenly tribulation, symbolizing the east, sends 200 bolts each towards Xiao Unhyun. From the west of the planet, dark clouds gather again and sends 200 bolts each of blue, golden, and white-colored, Asuro, heavenly tribulation, symbolizing the west, towards Xiao Unhyun. From the south, 200 bolts each of red-colored, Chusero, heavenly tribulation, symbolizing the south, along with the golden and blue heavenly tribulation, are sent. From the north, 200 bolts each of black-colored, Regressor, heavenly tribulation, symbolizing the north, along with the golden and blue heavenly tribulation, are sent. A total of 3,600 bolts of heavenly lightning. The breakthrough heavenly lightning of the integration stage is also known as Six Lightnings Glade, a powerful heavenly tribulation that fills the positions of the heavens, earth, and four directions. Xiao Unhyun can no longer simply crush the clouds with a single blow as he had done before. But that is still not the end. The advancement to the integration stage only truly begins now. He must draw upon the energy of heavens from the six lightnings and the energy of earth from the nearby dragon vein to carve a dragon vein into the interior of the small world he has created, all while being struck by the six lightnings. This dragon vein will create the life force within the small world, functioning as the 8 extraordinary meridians of the world itself, making it an extremely crucial task. Kuguguguk. Xiao Unhyun brings the dragon vein into his small world, into the middle area of the ground domain. In other words, if compared to Earth, he is laying the path of the dragon vein along the equator. Then, he establishes the Earth axis that connects the south and north poles. After laying the dragon vein at the equator and the path connecting the north and south poles, the next step is to carve a path through the sky using the six lightnings. What is engraved into the sky are the constellations and star movements of the 3 enclosures and 28 stars that he has already inscribed on his golden core, and the paths of the sun and moon for day and night. And after having completed all of this and enduring the six lightnings for an indefinite amount of time, Quarurum, at last, the torrential rain of heavenly tribulation ceases, and what remains is Xiao Unhyun's body, slowly emitting smoke as it floats above the planet. He slowly half opens his eyes. Xiao Unhyun can sense the world, Shurjaith, that has taken root within his body. This world gifts Xiao Unhyun with a level of attraction force far beyond that of his previous 4-axis stage, and it bestows upon him a newfound sense of omnipotence, different from before. Although it's a small world, within it, he is akin to nature, Dun, itself, a domain obtained through the Dao, of heaven and earth unity. Focusing his mind, Xiao Unhyun clasps his hands together and stimulates his small world, causing it to expand outside his physical body. Integrated Dao domain. Pot. In an instant, a dimensional veil bursts forth from Xiao Unhyun's body, continuously expanding his body. Standing at the north pole of this barren, ashen-gray desert that is his domain, Xiao Unhyun clasps his hands together and closes his eyes. This place is solely my domain. That means no one can intrude without my permission. I wield my authority within the domain and, just in case, block out all the light within it. In an instant, the domain is shrouded in darkness. Thud. I sit down alone in the desert, and within the darkened world, I speak. Everyone, I have reached the integration stage. As I stare into the darkness, I fantasize about the others. Younghoon Hyungnim, John Myonghoon, Kong Minhee, Hyunsuk Hyungnim, Yana, Buk Hyunghwa, Seo Ran, Shurho, Hong Fan, Yunwei. I call out each name that comes to mind, one by one. My voice echoes in the darkness. Will you congratulate me? No answer comes. In this darkness that no one can peer into, I bring my hand to my face. Something falls onto the rough sand. Yunwei was right. I was wrong. This world is nothing but despair. Chapter 407, Bowed Down in Prostration 4. Translator notes. Making this announcement again and putting it here as some people had no idea. Some people don't read translator notes t.t. There is a subscription for RTOC. It basically gives you access to all the current advanced chapters and the advanced chapters that will come out in the next 30 days or so. Chapter 407, Bowed Down in Prostration 4. I did not give a name to my integrated Dao domain. What meaning is there in naming the integrated Dao domain in a universe where no one else exists? Moreover, since my colorless glass sword is incomplete, the integrated Dao domain is also in an incomplete state, making it even more meaningless. After dwelling in the darkness for a while, I retract the integrated Dao domain and step outside. Shea, a planet lined with countless tombstones. I am marking down on everyone I remember, Because, after all, the vast majority of those who existed in this heavenly domain must have died. I still can't forget the sight of the 5 massive middle realms shrinking rapidly and disappearing into light and heat. Moreover, even though the true persons fled madly, none of them escaped the end brought about by the existence atop Great Mountain, and all perished. I thought the middle realms and true persons would be safe even in the end, but it seems it only applies to natural ends. After the end caused by the being atop Great Mountain, even the middle realms vanished, and the pre-existing true persons all seemed to have been utterly annihilated. Whoa. As I move from one planet to another in search of colorless glass sword shards, I see something resembling a caterpillar that looks like 7 or 8 planets stuck together swimming through the universe, prompting me to use the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts momentarily. It seems to devour the heaven and earth spiritual energy and nebulae in the void. Then soon after, it regurgitates a large planet from its stomach. It doesn't particularly seem interested in me, even as I approach it without using the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. It pays me no attention. However, I feel a chill as I sense the realm of that existence and realize what kind of being it is. Quasi-immortal. It's a true person at the entering nirvana stage. I have seen them a few times before. After the birth of this heavenly domain, I occasionally witnessed quasi-immortals wandering around, devouring nebulae and creating stars. Maybe it's because they are true persons, but there's something inherently terrifying about them who are younger than me in age, even when they seem to act purely on instinct without any intelligence or reason. The true persons are creating stars. It isn't just them. Occasionally, I also encountered sacred masters or esteemed ones while wandering. These aren't beings who attained their realm through cultivation, but rather monsters who were born as esteemed ones, sacred masters, and quasi-immortals from the start. I noticed that they weren't simply born randomly, but were given some kind of fate related to the stability of the heavenly domain. Entering nirvana stage, quasi-immortal level beings create stars. Sacred vessel stage, sacred master level beings find stars to organize laws, adjust the distance from fixed stars, and modify the orbits to make them more suitable for the birth of life. Star-shattering stage, esteemed 1-level beings roam the cosmos, scattering bizarre celestial phenomena randomly throughout with heaven and earth spiritual energy, producing the dust clouds that quasi-immortals eat to create stars. Watching them, I can see that the esteemed ones, sacred masters, and quasi-immortals are all part of the fate that maintains the vast ecosystem called the universe. Particularly, in the case of sacred masters, it's so evident that they were born with the explicit fate to bring life to the universe that it makes me slightly uneasy. The only fortunate thing is that as long as I don't approach them first and interfere with their work, they remain indifferent to me. I continue to avoid direct encounters with the esteemed ones, sacred masters, and quasi-immortals, occasionally observing them while continuing my search for the colorless glass sword shards. 20,000 years pass. If counting the years accumulated from my regressions, today marks my 50,000th birthday. Cling clang. I repair the colorless glass sword by joining 3 shards I found on a previous planet. The more of the colorless glass sword shards I find, the faster the pace becomes. Over the past 20,000 years, I have been able to restore 10 colorless glass swords. Chua. After attaching the shards, I activate the canvas of myriad forms and connections. The canvas of myriad forms and connections has also been restored with remarkable precision, comparable to before. From some point on, the graves of the Wuji religious order followers that I remember have covered more than half of the surface of the planet where I reside. I look at them with sad eyes. My 50,000th birthday. If even one of them had been still alive, they might have congratulated me. No, even if that isn't the case, I could have felt warmth and at least share a conversation. Not much time has passed in the history of this new heavenly domain, and I am still the only one with reason in this world. The quasi-immortals, sacred masters, and esteemed ones are still simply following their instincts, making the universe more prosperous. It's cold. The chill in my heart is so overwhelming. I feel like I might die. Ah. I hold my chest and let out a groan. A faint, lifeless groan escapes my lips. My chest hurts. Even for me, for who the pain of having my testicles removed became within the range of what I can accept and can endure any form of torture without blinking an eye. The pain is so unbearable that I can't help but groan. I have fallen ill, and the name of that illness is loneliness. Another 10,000 years have passed. I have restored 100 colorless glass swords. The speed of restoring the colorless glass sword increases by the day, and the attraction force of the canvas of myriad forms and connections is gradually growing stronger. Surprisingly, the canvas of myriad forms and connections harbors a powerful attraction force that even I hadn't been aware of. As I restored the colorless glass sword and the canvas of myriad forms and connections, I acquired a deeper understanding of the canvas of myriad forms and connections that I hadn't known before. The 31st move. If I restore the canvas of myriad forms and connections, it will become much easier to control. I ponder as such with a calm expression. Whoa. Afterward, I focus my consciousness on the colorless glass sword, continuing to follow the countless links of attraction force attached to it, and restoring the sword. Then one day, Kagugugu. On a sulfur sea on a planet where sulfur boils relentlessly, on an island within the center of that sea, I find a colorless glass sword shard beneath a rock and discover something strange. This is... Startled, I reach out towards it with trembling hands. Clang. Chills. I suddenly feel chills run down my entire body. The reason? Because what I found is a red sword. On the blade of the sword, the characters calendar calculations, Lisu, are engraved in an auspicious manner. As I look at this extremely auspicious-looking treasure sword, I shudder. How could this? It's a trace of civilization, and a very advanced civilization at that. This is not an ordinary sword, but a truly terrifying divine sword. If that's the case, does that mean that somewhere in this world, there exists a civilization, or a being with reason capable of creating such a sword? But just then, woo-wong, I suddenly feel a powerful resonance coming from an object inside my storage scroll. Although I'm not entirely sure how I was revived, my clothing and storage scroll were restored along with me. And except for my natal Dharma treasure, the colorless glass sword, most of my Dharma treasures are intact. I take out a pristine, pure white divine sword made of salt crystal, known as Reforming Calendar. Reforming Calendar, Galit, and Calendar Calculations, Lisu. I know the moment I see them. These two were created as a pair. I am slightly dumbfounded. If these were made as a pair, then the sword called Calendar Calculations is a replica of an immortal treasure. And yet, despite being a failed attempt at that, it has survived the end and remains in this place. Just what? I find it hard to believe that Reforming Calendar and Calendar Calculations are failed replicas, not even worthy of being called immortal treasures. I would believe it even if someone told me they are real immortal treasures. No matter how precious salt crystal might be, just what kind of Dharma treasure can withstand the end? Feeling absurd, I place Reforming Calendar and Calendar Calculations back into my storage scroll for now. 5,000 years have passed. I have now gathered 1,000 colorless glass swords. Wawoom. Now, more than 80% of the canvas of myriad forms and connections has been restored, and I can tell. From now on, within 500 years, I can find all the colorless glass sword shards. It's no longer just a matter of certainty in the attraction force. I can gradually feel the shards of the colorless glass sword being drawn back to me by attraction force. It likely won't take much longer. I gaze bitterly into the void. This is the longest cycle I've ever survived. But at the same time, it's been one of the most painful and agonizing lives I've ever lived. What does it matter if I live for 100,000 or 1,000,000 years? In the end, people are beings that swim within the ties of connection. In a place devoid of connections, one cannot grow. In the coming tens of thousands of years, in this world where only those monstrous quasi-immortals, sacred masters, and esteemed ones exist, I would remain unchanged, just as before. Kugigong. Finally, after tens of thousands of years, I have gathered all 3,000 colorless glass swords that have been scattered across the entire heavenly domain. Clang. One of the last shards of the colorless glass sword is fitted into place. However, gathering all the swords does not mean fully restoring the colorless glass sword. I let out a sigh. The very last piece of the colorless glass sword, the tip of the blade. I still haven't found the tiny fragment that forms the final point. I rise from the cave where I found the last shard. Wawoom. Through the attraction force of the canvas of myriad forms and connections, I focus my consciousness to search for the very last, final fragment of the colorless glass sword. And just then, something is strange. I can definitely feel that the last piece of the colorless glass sword is in this world. It exists somewhere in this heavenly domain. But even with the canvas of myriad forms and connections, I can't find it. It's just the one, very last piece, and yet, greatly alarmed, I once again raise the canvas of myriad forms and connections to sense through its attraction force. Is it because it's too far away? But it's strange. Even though the heavenly domain is expanding in real time, growing larger, the canvas of myriad forms and connections has always managed to track the shards of the colorless glass sword. This is an incredibly bizarre occurrence. Greatly taken aback, I stomp my foot in frustration. Quagwagwagwang. With my stomp, the continent of this planet splits apart, causing earthquakes and tsunamis. The cave I am in collapses completely and disappears. Just before the cave crumbled, in that fleeting moment, I avoided all the falling rocks and escaped, letting out a scream filled with rage. Where is it? The canvas of myriad forms and connections, my canvas of myriad forms and connections, must be restored at all costs. Even if I have already restored over 99%, it isn't enough unless it's perfect. My canvas of myriad forms and connections is, yes, it's Seo Unhyun. It is the essence of myself. To lose even a speck of the canvas of myriad forms and connections would be like forgetting a speck of my own connections. No, I have to find it. I must find it. I don't want to forget even the smallest connection. I can't let even a speck of memory slip through my fingers. I will definitely get it back in my hands, no matter what it takes. I shout with bloodshot eyes. And then, kugagugagu. In the debris of the collapsed cave, I discover something. That is, it's clearly an artificially made large disc. It also looks like a shield. Again, something like this appears before my eyes. I stand in front of the disc with an uncomfortable expression. There is no name on the disc. It's merely a disc, nothing more. But it's clearly something created by a civilization. And since I am the only being with reason in this universe right now, there is only one possibility. Either someone scattered it in front of me, or, like reforming calendar and calendar calculations, it's an object that has transcended the end. And then, wawoom. As I look at reforming calendar and calendar calculations howling wildly within my storage scroll, I realize it's the latter. Chapter 408, Bowed Down in Prostration 5. Woo-woom. Reforming calendar, calendar calculations, and an unidentified disc. The three items resonate together. I try to guess the identity of the disc. I see. A failed imitation made by a true person. I heard there are 3 in total, and it seems this is the third. Just as I think so, pat it. Clink, clink, clink. The pure white divine sword, reforming calendar. The red divine sword, calendar calculations. The unidentified disc. The 3 items appear to gather in one place before emitting a clear light as they merge into one. And what appeared is south-pointing disc, Dranonpon. A south-pointing disc, also known as a compass. Calendar calculations seems to be pointing north. Reforming calendar seems to be pointing south. Quong. I look at the enormous south-pointing disc, far larger than myself, and stick out my tongue in astonishment. What is this? A Dharma treasure that appeared out of nowhere. A trace of civilization I haven't seen in ages. It's a sign of intelligence, but instead of feeling joy, I feel a sense of unease and a chill crawling down my spine. I first obtained reforming calendar from Yuk Rin's treasure vault. However, in hindsight, the performance of reforming calendar is insane. It's a weapon that by itself provides the combat strength at the integration stage. It isn't quite on the level of the Mad Lord's wonderfully mysterious fortress, but it is still an extremely formidable Dharma treasure by itself. No matter how much Yuk Rin, a demon beast of the demon race, didn't use Dharma treasures, it's unthinkable that such a treasure would be casually placed in the treasure mountain. Moreover, something fell off when I fought with Jean Mayil. Salt crystal is an excellent mineral, but it's not known for being particularly hard. Being used for cultivation like how Yuk Rin cut off a salt pillar from the salt crystal palace and ate it to enhance his cultivation, or being used for its physical properties as the keel of a ship, like the Saltbones ship. That is the salt crystal. However, even when I struck reforming calendar, which is processed from salt crystal, with the all-heaven sword before I was weakened, it didn't suffer a single scratch. In the end, unlike other weapons that shattered, it merely bounced off the hands of Jean Mayol. And then there's the divine sword calendar calculations, which I obtained next. Calendar calculations was placed right below where the shard of the colorless glass sword was found, almost as if someone had hidden it there, knowing I would come looking for the colorless glass sword. And the same is true for the disc. As soon as the cave where I retrieved the colorless glass sword shard collapsed, the disc appeared as if it had been waiting, and the 3 Dharma treasures instantly merged into a compass. It feels as if some entity was guiding me toward this compass. The problem is that if I start feeling like this, it's almost never just a feeling. 9 times out of 10, it means a great being is guiding my fate. Some existence is trying to do something with me right now. Through this compass, no less. What is that being's purpose? It could simply be goodwill, but I know better. This world is nothing but a massive calamity. At least for us, goodwill will never come our way. I can't trust anyone. Embracing Yun Wei's philosophy more than ever, I unfold the integrated Tao domain. Wu Wong. With all the spiritual energy and dragon vein within the integrated Tao domain. And utilizing attraction force, I grip the all-heaven sword along with the 3 great ultimates, and, with the martial technique of Deep Mountain, emerging Tao, I strike down the compass. Kugwagwagwang. The compass, struck within the integrated Tao domain, pierces through the domain and embeds itself directly into the planet's core. That's right. Instead of shattering on the spot, it was deflected and lodged itself there. Retracting the domain, I glare at the compass. Not a single scratch. With my current strength, I can go hold my own against someone at the quasi-star shattering stage. It's clearly an artifact formed by the combination of the integration-level Dharma treasure reforming calendar, calendar calculations, along with the unidentified disk. It'd be accurate if one thinks of it as a grand perfection integration-level Dharma treasure. However, the single strike I just delivered isn't a joke. If hit directly, I could have sent even high-end EUM straight to the afterlife. Yet, the compass took the hit and didn't even get scratched. I let out a low growl, glaring fiercely at the compass. I can tell. This isn't just some integration-level Dharma treasure. It was said to be a failed product of an entering nirvana quasi-immortal, but honestly, I don't really know. Though the compass isn't particularly large, I can't help but feel the same unknown pressure from it as I did from the serving command arc. The legendary discarded immortal treasure that pierced through the head of Lofty Dragon, the serving command arc. Its majesty was truly overwhelming when I first saw it, and this compass seems to exude a similar level of pressure. After staring at the compass for a long time, I decide to ignore it and head to a planet in the opposite direction. Enough, I'm abandoning it. I don't know which true immortal or higher being is trying to toy with me again, but there's no reason to play along. After passing by a planet while thinking such thoughts, Kugagugagu, I lock eyes with a true person in the shape of a frog with its entire body covered in eyeballs, clinging to the back of the planet. Blink. The quasi-immortal in the form of a frog looks at me and opens its mouth. Chwok. This crazy. I turn pale and dodge the quasi-immortal's tongue. No, should it even be called a tongue? It looks like a sea anemone with soft starlight swirling around it. If Azure Tiger Saint's Azure Spirit Starlight Quintessence Great Method took the form of a tongue, it'd probably look like that. Kugagugagu. The starlight sea anemone-like tongue chases after me. Damn, I don't understand why something that had no aggressiveness towards me is suddenly showing such behavior. Fleeing in a haste, I head to a planet nearby. Only when I return do I realize it's the place I discarded the compass. Kugugugu. The quasi-immortal's sea anemone twitches from the sky. While searching for a place to hide, I end up diving into the spot where I smashed the compass, creating a path down to the core. Coom. In an instant, I fall to the core and end up stepping on the compass. Fortunately, or unfortunately, the frog-like quasi-immortal seems to have just flicked its tongue for fun, as it retracts its sea anemone-like tongue and disappears again. Gritting my teeth, I try to leave once more. But this time, a star-shattering esteemed one in the shape of a continent-sized carp chases after me, forcing me to hide beside the compass again. After experiencing these two incidents, I realize something. Is this fate? I've experienced something similar before. When I was still young. It's the same feeling as the time when I struggled desperately at Ascension Path, trying to prevent my comrades from being handed over to Seo Huiol, the Mad Lord, and the Heavenly Being Trio. No matter how hard I struggled, fate would move and block my path, guiding the flow back to its original course. No matter what I did, my comrades were inevitably drawn to the individuals connected to them. Recalling that time, I understand that someone has manipulated my fate to guide me to the compass. So, I'm supposed to use the compass? I hesitate for a moment before letting out a small laugh. After all, I have nothing left to lose. With a bitter expression, I reach out and touch the compass. Woo-woo. As I infuse my consciousness into it, the name and usage of the compass flows into my mind. The name of the compass is the South Polar Compass, Nanjipan. Its ability is to guide the best path towards the entity connected by attraction force. I can't help but laugh in disbelief. It feels contrived. Just when I can't find the last fragment of the colorless glass sword. Just when I need help to locate the colorless glass sword, a Dharma treasure that can do so appears right before my eyes. It's clear that someone's intentions are at play, and it doesn't make me feel comfortable. But I have no choice but to place my hand on the South Polar Compass and register the attraction force for the colorless glass sword. Someone is moving me through the South Polar Compass. And the power and fate that this someone possesses are beyond what I can escape from at this moment. If that's the case, though they are words I really despise, I have no choice but to follow them. This world is a play under fate, and we are merely actors acting within this play. Like an actor, you should just be faithful to your role. Otherwise, you'll be driven off the stage. Seo Huiol's words. Despite my irritation, I have to admit that in this situation, I have no choice but to follow his words as I glare at the compass. Fine. I don't know who is trying to do what with me, but for now, I'll act according to the role assigned to me. For now, I'll faithfully perform the role I've been assigned. Pat it. Riding the South Polar Compass, I cross the universe. Woo-woo. The South Polar Compass needle, reforming calendar, points in a specific direction, and I use attraction force to fly there with the ground shrinking technique. Woo-woo. And sometime later, the South Polar Compass sends a signal saying we arrived at the destination. The South Polar Compass, much like the navigation systems on Earth, sets a target and provides the best path to it, and when you arrive, it sends a signal like this. Following the guidance of the South Polar Compass, I descend in front of a rocky cave on a certain planet. Then, sweeping my consciousness around, I operate the canvas of myriad forms and connections across the entire planet to search for the colorless glass sword fragment. But nothing appears. Even after fully revealing the colorless glass sword and pulling with the attraction force of the canvas of myriad forms and connections, nothing comes out. After retrieving the colorless glass sword, I re-register its attraction force into the South Polar Compass and speak. Guide me, South Polar Compass. The needle of the South Polar Compass spins around before pointing to some distant part of the universe. It's saying the fragment is located in another place. I feel my blood boil in frustration, but I calm my anger and ride the South Polar Compass towards the direction it indicates. And there, too, the colorless glass sword fragment is nowhere to be found. And once again, the South Polar Compass points to yet another random location. Even though I am overwhelmed with the urge to smash the South Polar Compass to pieces, it won't break anyway. And if I can't control my anger and throw it away, I will immediately find myself under the bizarre misfortune of being chased by quasi-mortals or esteemed ones, binding me right back to the side of the South Polar Compass. Even if misfortune arises, I can't neutralize it like before. If I use the phenomena extinguishing mantra to nullify the misfortune, the owner of Great Mountain would come looking for me again. At this point, I have no choice but to play along with this puppet show, the intentions of which remain unclear. And so, tens of thousands of years pass. 100,000. It's my 100,000th birthday. Once again, I sigh at the stupidity of the South Polar Compass pointing to yet another strange location, and I adjust the compass to embark on another journey through the universe. How many tens of thousands of years has it been? I don't know what the intentions of the being that sent the South Polar Compass to me are, but without any explanation as to why they're doing this to me, they tied me to the South Polar Compass and dragged me around like a dog, forcing me to travel to every corner of the universe. What dog-like place will I travel to today? For tens of thousands of years, I've been traveling with the South Polar Compass. Even with just the intermittent cultivation I managed during these travels, I have already reached the mid-integration stage in both Heaven and Earth tribe. Is it because the new heavenly domain has not been around for long? Every corner of the universe is overflowing with Heaven and Earth spiritual energy. Thanks to that, I am able to reach a somewhat corresponding realm after tens of thousands of years. With exhausted eyes, I arrive on some star, guided once again by the South Polar Compass. And as always, I can't give up hope, so I struggle to find the last fragment of the colorless glass sword by moving the star's dragon vein and activating the canvas of myriad forms and connections. Kugugugugu. The dragon vein of the planet roars under my influence, briefly operating according to the formula of the canvas of myriad forms and connections. Not here either, huh? I sigh and once again fly off towards the next location indicated by the South Polar Compass. And just then, woo-woo. Suddenly, I notice the energy of the dragon vein, which has been boiling throughout the entire star, seems to be stretching beyond the star. What's this? Did I see it wrong? I rub my eyes, and the sight quickly disappears. However, after reviewing the records stored within the canvas of myriad forms and connections, I realized that it wasn't a hallucination. I definitely saw it. Just what was that? When I examine the planet again, I see that the dragon vein has quietly returned to its dormant state within the planet. Time passed. As I continue traveling through the universe with the South Polar Compass, I begin to see the vision I previously witnessed more frequently, and at some point, I become certain that it isn't an illusion. Woo-woo. The dragon vein is extending beyond the star. The dragon vein, stretching beyond the star, connects to another star like a massive pillar, and I can vaguely see that the other star is also connected to another. It isn't a hallucination. I see. Only now do I understand why the South Polar Compass has been dragging me around the vast heaven and earth in four directions of the universe. Was it to give me this vision? It seems that way. This vision of the dragon vein is unique. All the stars in this universe have spirit veins of heaven and earth spiritual energy flowing within them, and that level of spirit vein can be seen by anyone at the core formation stage. However, the pillar of spirit veins that extends beyond the stars is not easily visible. Only those who have traveled to millions of stars, analyzed their energy, and repeatedly activated the dragon veins can see this pillar. At first, I wasn't accustomed to this vision of seeing those pillars, but after becoming familiar with it, I felt like I understood the identity and origin of those pillars. The dragon veins of the stars have reached an extreme point, transcending the plane, and have entered the plane of fate. It was something I couldn't perceive at first because the endless spirit veins of the stars simply transcended over the plane of soul. The stars seem to be far apart, but that isn't the case. In reality, they are closely connected, emitting attraction force towards each other in the plane of fate. Only through the spirit veins that shot up into the plane of fate can I faintly catch a glimpse of this. All the stars in this universe are connected by countless pillars of light. This is truly a scene that brings to mind the concept of Indra's net. I give to this pillar of light, that is, the dragon vein of the stars, a name. The star's dragon vein, star vein, Shingat. Pot. Together with the south polar compass, following the star veins, I fly towards the direction the compass indicates. As expected, I can't find the colorless glass sword fragment this time either. However, since the day I clearly gained the eyes to see the star vein, I realized that the south polar compass isn't leading me aimlessly. With each journey with the south polar compass, my ability to see the star vein eye, is further enhanced. I can now see the star vein from farther and farther away, and with more detail. 160,000 years. I, too, having lived for 160,000 years, have become a living fossil. The lifespan I received in the integration stage is nearly exhausted, and as a result, wrinkles are gradually appearing on my skin and face. In just 30,000 more years, I will likely die. Kuguguguk. My cultivation has now reached the late integration stage. My attainment in seated detachment, entering hope, has reached a level where I can freely unleash individual strikes with ease. How long will this journey continue? Will I be able to find the colorless glass sword before I die? Unable to hide the slight desolate feeling in my heart, I continue to travel through the astral realm with the south polar compass. Star vein eye, in a way, is a sense far more difficult to attain than nether perception. Anyone who cultivates the ghost path method or is deceased can obtain nether perception. But to obtain star vein eye, one needs to fulfill the extraordinary condition of having visited millions of stars and drawn out the dragon vein in each and every star. Moreover, unlike nether perception, star vein eye does not grow easily. Even after wandering for tens of thousands of years with the south polar compass that seems to help the growth of the star vein eye, all I can see after a long time is the vast network of constellations spread across the entire universe. But one day, after finishing a journey with the south polar compass, my star vein eye breaks through a certain critical point, and upon surpassing that point, I become able to see something incredible. Its history. Through the dragon veins, I can now see how the constellations have moved up to that point. I can now see their records. One might ask, what's so remarkable about such records? It's not like I can peruse all records like Ohiasio and records of constellations at that, but indeed, it is something extraordinary. The records of constellations are guiding me through a path. A path that leads to the original great explosion, the very starting point of the heavenly domain. Woo-wong. Looking at that path, I finally realize where the last fragment of the colorless glass sword is. It's beyond that path, and I can guess what lies at the end of that path. Perhaps there's an exit that leads out of this heavenly domain. Yes, the final fragment of the colorless glass sword has existed outside of this heavenly domain from the very beginning. Parararak. Upon realizing this, the south polar compass finally begins to guide me accurately along the path. I am now 192,202 years old. I have 400 years left before my lifespan runs out. The time it took to reach the exit of the heavenly domain is precisely 400 years. The timing is so exact, it almost feels contrived. I touch the wrinkles on my face and my beard. At this point, my cultivation has reached grand perfection integration stage in heaven and earth dual cultivation and the equivalent level in the heart tribe. In other words, I am on par with, if not superior to, her in her prime. My death is not far off, and my cultivation has been raised to its fullest extent. But even so, I feel fear as I look at the door before me. Kugugugugu. A door that leads out of the heavenly domain. I realize there are two diverging paths beyond that door. One is just the normal path leading out of the heavenly domain. The other is a suspicious path leading somewhere. And the last fragment of the colorless glass sword is on the path leading to somewhere. I'm not afraid of the unknown. What I truly fear is the existence that lies beyond. I can tell. Beyond there is the being who gave me the south polar compass and manipulated my fate for hundreds of thousands of years, forcing upon me the star vein eye. I can feel that being trying to meet me. Even now, the image of the owner of Great Mountain slaughtering all my comrades and reverting the universe to its primordial state has not left my mind. However, despite that, I ride the south polar compass towards that place. There is nothing left to lose. The only thing to lose is my memory. Even though it's a mere speck, that fragment of the colorless glass sword, that canvas of myriad forms and connections, contains my history, our history. I ride the south polar compass and take a step outside this heavenly domain. Pat it. The heaven and earth in four directions are dyed pure white. Kugugugu. The galaxy. At the center of countless galaxies, there is a certain throne, and the south polar compass brings me right in front of that throne. And suddenly, flash, the south polar compass, which has carried me all this time, shines white and transforms into an old man. I look at him calmly. Is it you? The one who wished to see me? I can feel it. The being before my eyes is at least a true immortal. No, I am but an incarnation of the main body. I took this form out of consideration, since you would go mad by gazing directly upon the main body. If you have something to say, you could have summoned me directly. Why wait so many long years to call me? Haha, long years, you say? The old man strokes his beard and asks, do you know who I am? I cautiously ask the old man, who are you? I have many titles. Some call me the god of calendar, others call me the owner of time. Snap. When he snaps his fingers, the surroundings transform into a paradise-like pavilion. As he sits in the pavilion, he speaks. You may call me the heavenly venerable of time. I kneel involuntarily before his solemn presence. Bow down in prostration before me. I have been watching over you for a very long time. Translator notes. No chapter tomorrow would be pretty brutal, right? LOL.